This is stupid. Lonka snapped, throwing her hands up in frustration. Lonka, Jamie sighed from the back seat. Calm down. Ryan ignored their bickering, peering out the car window. Dynami Star Studios sprawled across 2.5 square kilometers on the eastern edge of New Rome. It was an impressive compound with a sprawling open park, 7 warehouses, and an air of industry. Staff scurried about, carrying coffee, moving props, and prepping for stunts. Despite the activity, security seemed lax, a single checkpoint manned by a handful of guards. Clearly, no one expected an attack. Their car sat parked outside the studio's boundaries, just out of sight of security cameras. Inside, Ki-young dozed against her boyfriend's shoulder, her head resting in peaceful defiance of the situation. Her enhanced rats, meanwhile, were scouting the studio. Ryan had learned enough about Chitter's abilities to respect them. Her rat familiars acted as an extension of her nervous system, relaying sensory data across impressive distances. Destroying her primary rats could temporarily disable her powers, but the swarm's independence made them formidable. I mean, why would we risk fighting Wyvern, a shapeshifter who can literally take on the boss, for his favor? Lonka jabbed a finger at Ryan, who feigned a wounded expression. Because Vulcan wants it, Jamie replied patiently, and she's one of the capos. Besides, with some luck, we won't even run into her. She's probably too busy to play stunt double. And if you're wrong? None of us can take her on. Lonka shot back. Ryan's unease deepened. Over the course of countless loops, he had developed a sixth sense for danger, and now it screamed at him. Someone, or something, was watching them. Yet, their location should have been a blind spot for the cameras. I need to install a radar in this car, Ryan muttered under his breath, flipping on the radio to distract himself. In other news, the Roman Republic remains under curfew following the assassination of Gaius Julius Caesar. Caesar again? Ryan groaned. That was 2,000 years ago. Jamie leaned forward, curious. What station is that? It's my chronoradio, Ryan explained, flipping channels. It tunes into broadcasts across time and space. For some reason, it defaults to Roman Republic coverage. Lonka rolled her eyes. You're making this up. Am not. Fuck you, Einstein. Whenever you want, Ryan replied with a smirk. Finding a channel broadcasting post-apocalyptic blues, Ki-young stirred awake just in time to hear the music. So? Jamie asked her. Wyvern's not here, she said, scratching her neck. Someone else is covering for her. Told you she doesn't do her own stunts, Jamie said triumphantly. Don't get too comfortable, Ki-young added. Wardrobe's filling in, and Adam Cat's here too. Jamie's smugness evaporated. Wardrobe gains powers based on her costume, right? Ryan asked. Ki-young nodded. She gets weak imitations of whoever she dresses as. But Adam Cat. Jamie grimaced. We don't want to fight him. He's that dangerous? Ryan asked. Dangerous enough. He can turn anything into a bomb with a touch, Jamie said. And we've been ordered not to hurt him, Ki-young added. Ryan leaned back, digesting the information. So, what's the plan? Guns blazing. No, Jamie replied. We flood the place with rats, make a mess, and leave before security catches on. Betrayal. Ryan exclaimed, throwing his hands up. This is killing me, Jamie. You'll survive, Jamie replied with a shrug. Minutes later, chaos erupted at the studio. Thousands of rats swarmed the warehouses, pouring through windows and spilling into every crevice. Staff fled in terror, spilling coffee and tripping over each other in the panic. My, Ryan murmured, watching the carnage. This city has a rat problem. Jamie chuckled. Let's head home before security gets here. The ride back was uneventful, to Ryan's disappointment. He had hoped for a car chase or ambush, but New Rome's heroes didn't seem particularly proactive. When they reached their shared house, Ryan stayed behind in the car to fiddle with his chronoradio while the others headed inside. Ki-young paused at the door. Something's wrong, she said, frowning. What is it? Jamie asked. I can't sense the rats I left here, she replied. Before anyone could react, the house exploded in a massive fireball. Ryan froze time instinctively, stepping out of the car to survey the destruction. The blast had obliterated the house and killed Ki-young and Lonka instantly. Jamie, protected by his armor, screamed in anguish as he cradled Ki-young's charred remains. It's useless, Ryan said flatly. They're gone. Jamie turned on him, eyes blazing with fury. That's all you have to say? Ryan's detachment came from experience. He could rewind time and fix this. But before he could explain, shards of glass flew at him like knives. Simultaneously, Jamie's armor short-circuited, electrocuting him. Time resumed, and Ryan's world turned upside down as a sharp pain sliced through his neck. His head hit the ground, his body numb. He glimpsed his own headless torso before a storm of glass shards rained down, ending him. Ryan woke up in his car, gripping the wheel. "Twice," he muttered. "That bastard killed me twice." Whoever was after him was good, methodical, prepared, and merciless. He couldn't continue his mission without dealing with this assassin first. With a grim resolve, Ryan decided to take Wyvern up on her offer. Il Miglior's HQ, the Optimate's Tower, was the most opulent place Ryan had ever laid eyes on. Nestled in the northeast district of New Rome, far from the decayed ruins of Rust Town, this area catered to the city's supreme elite. The 70-floor Optimate's Tower was a hybrid of penthouse skyscraper and luxury hotel. Its bulkier lower half housed gardens, poolside balconies, and even helipad areas, while the sleeker upper floors were dedicated to corporate offices. The structure's Art Deco-inspired design, luxurious yet modern with geometric symmetry, spoke volumes about its occupants' taste for grandeur. Ryan's appointment was on floor 63, where he sat in a lavishly decorated waiting room. Across the room, a secretary in her 30s worked behind a polished desk, typing with mechanical precision. Another occupant, a familiar face, waited near a set of ornate office doors. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Ryan could see the true Dynamis HQ looming nearby, a massive glass spire that dwarfed even the Optimate's Tower by at least 20 stories. It gleamed like a fortress of modernity, its upper floors obscured by an opaque layer of specialized glass. The design resembled futuristic arcologies, self-sufficient cities within buildings, with visible greenhouses, gardens and water reservoirs on several levels. Ryan suspected the unseen upper floors held secrets worthy of the heavy security presence surrounding it. Private security agents, clad in sleek white armor with integrated laser cannons, patrolled both the Optimate's Tower and the Dynamis HQ. Unlike their less elite counterparts in other parts of the city, these operatives were a true military force, disciplined, unwaveringly loyal, and from what Ryan had heard, utterly incorruptible. "Excuse me," Ryan said, breaking the silence. He turned to the other person waiting for an appointment. "Are you the panda?" The man-bear perked up, his hopeful gaze meeting Ryan's. Gone was the bombastic bravado Ryan remembered from previous loops. This panda seemed subdued, almost melancholy. "You know me?" the panda asked, his voice tinged with eagerness. "Of course I know you," Ryan declared, grinning. "You're the panda. The last of your kind. Whenever I see you riding your bicycle of justice, I get goosebumps." The panda beamed, his spirits visibly lifting. "Thanks. I'm really trying to live up to the legacy and make pandas trendy again. But why is a solo hero like you here, in the heart of corporate superheroism?" The panda's expression shifted to one of weary determination. "The panda struggles alone. I'm trying to make a name for myself, but it's tough. None of the villains want to fight me in public because, well, I'm just too powerful." Ryan suppressed a smirk. "I'm sure you are." "It's frustrating," the panda continued, oblivious to Ryan's sarcasm. "With great power comes great isolation, you know?" Ryan nodded solemnly. "A tale as old as time. Mr. Romano?" The secretary's voice broke through their conversation. "Mr. Manada will see you now. Good luck with your interview," the panda said as Ryan stood. "What's your name?" "Quick save," Ryan replied, giving a thumbs up. "Immortal, but don't tell anyone." "I won't." The secretary ushered Ryan into the office and closed the doors behind him. The room was massive, almost absurdly so, yet most of its space was occupied by an indoor garden. Rows of meticulously arranged flowers, geraniums, rose bushes, chrysanthemums and more, bloomed in vibrant colors. A miniature Japanese pond with golden carp glinting beneath the water added a serene touch to the grandeur. At the far end of the room, a tall, slender man stood behind a mahogany desk positioned to offer a panoramic view of New Rome. His attire, a black tuxedo adorned with a single black rose, oozed elegance, further accentuated by white gloves and a stylized white helmet that reminded Ryan of pre-war Daft Punk. The courier couldn't help but admire the man's fashion sense. "I am Enrique Manada, Chief Brand Officer at Dynamis and Head Manager of the Il Miglior program," the man introduced himself, extending a hand. His voice was calm yet commanding, with a faint scent of roses trailing him as he moved. "You may also call me Blackthorn." Ryan shook his hand. "I don't see any thorns on your suit," but his gaze narrowed. "Wait. Is that cashmere?" "You have a sharp eye," Enrique replied, gesturing for Ryan to take a seat in an intricately carved wooden chair. "We produce our own cashmere at Dynamis. It's prohibitively expensive, but elegance has no price." Ryan barely heard the words, too busy mentally adding "get a cashmere suit" to his to-do list. "Let's get to the point," Enrique began, folding his hands on the desk. "Few people make it to my office without a personal recommendation. Wyvern vouched for you, which speaks volumes. But before we proceed, I have to ask, how did you know about Ghoul's escape attempt? Gut feeling, Ryan replied with an innocent shrug. I don't believe you. Enrique's piercing gaze didn't falter. The private security has been compromised. Several members helped Ghoul during his attempted breakout. If you have information, now is the time to share. Ryan filed the revelation away. The Metagang's reach into private security was troubling, and their organization seemed far more sophisticated than he'd anticipated. He made a mental note to investigate further. In any case, Enrique continued, your trust in us won't go unrewarded. So tell me, Mr. Romano, why do you want to join IL Miglior? Ryan leaned back, his grin returning. Ever since I was young, I've dreamed of becoming an ad. An ad? Enrique repeated, eyebrow raised. You know, like Mr. Clean or Felix the cat. I want my face on cereal boxes. Aha, Enrique replied dryly. And the real reason? Greed, Ryan said flatly. Enrique smirked. Your psychological profile suggests otherwise. They did a psychological profile on me? Must have been exhausting. Enrique ignored the quip. Here's my offer, a 5-year contract with IL Miglior. You help us clean New Rome, promote Dynamis, and most importantly behave. In return, we offer generous accommodations, a clean slate, and access to someone I believe you're very interested in. He slid a photo across the desk. Ryan's heart stopped. It was Len, older, battered, but unmistakably her. Where is she? Ryan demanded, his tone dead serious. In a place beyond your reach for now, Enrique replied calmly. Help us, and you'll see her again. That's a promise. Ryan's gaze shifted to the hefty contract. He skimmed the clauses, already calculating how to use Dynami's resources to track down his assassin, and Len. The terms were steep, but Ryan had always been a gambler. You're only offering 30% royalties on merchandising, he quipped, breaking the tension. That's theft. We'll also be changing your name, Enrique said. Quick Save isn't marketable. How about Time Lord? Ryan groaned internally. Signing the deal felt like shaking hands with the devil.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing
Hell
to
existed,
the channel.
and it was a corporate
Also, feel free
seminar.
to share your review
Ryan
in the
had thought
comment
his first
section
day on the
below.
job as a Little League member would involve superhero training, maybe a routine patrol with Wyvern. Something practical. Instead, the courier received an assignment to a boring, weeks-long corporate internship. He simply had to look at the day's planning to wish for a restart. Coffee breakfast, first meeting, with half an hour delay because of the aforementioned coffee break, then lunch, then second meeting, then the real lunch, then the second coffee break, third meeting, afternoon lunch, coffee break, then corporate videos. All before 6 in the afternoon, after which Ryan could either leave or participate in after-hour drink networking. So far these meetings consisted of seminars about brand management, marketing guys brainstorming his new and improved branding, lawyer interviews where they discussed auxiliary rights, and now an education video about Dynami's company culture. In short, no superhero work at all. Ryan wasn't the only recruit there, but much to his surprise, most of them seemed to enjoy these boring, mindless activities. They were more eager to discuss their image and royalties than actual fieldwork. This place drained the courier of his soul. He could feel it. With a bored sigh, Ryan reached the room where he was supposed to watch the new corporate video, putting his hand on a door scanner. Dynamis had extracted a drop of his blood soon after he signed their contract, which allowed the company to somehow track and identify him. Biosignature Time Lord. Ryan groaned at the generic name while the door opened. Couldn't they have picked something more unique like Clockomancer or Clockblocker? The courier walked into a darkened informal conference room wide enough to welcome dozens upon dozens of people, with Mesoamerican drawings on creamy walls. Dynamis favored an informal, comfortable style, replacing plastic chairs with cotton armchairs and sofas. The Little League new recruits were gathered in front of a giant screen alongside the PR staff, exchanging pleasantries while consuming Dynamis-made energy drinks. Most seemed aged between 15 and their mid-20s, wearing colorful costumes designed by the marketing department. From what Ryan heard, they were currently discussing the latest fashion trends, who dated who among IL Miglior's Pro League, and how they got introduced to Enrique Manada in the first place. The wasn't among these brats. Which was an injustice of the highest order, since he would have fit in perfectly. Ryan noticed a lone wolf at the back, who preferred to examine photos and paper reports on a luxurious sofa than looking at the screen. This man wore a white cat-shaped mask covering the upper part of his face, showcasing his smooth pale skin, blue eyes, and combed blonde hair, a true Adonis. All in all, he seemed around 18, wearing a pink and white sleeveless gymnast suit. The D-shaped symbol flashed on the screen, alongside colorful music. The image of an elderly Latino man with graying hair, a macho mustache, and a rather large belly appeared at the forefront, with a picture of New Rome in the background. He reminded Ryan of an older picture of Pablo Escobar, down to the casual outfit and friendly smile hiding the teeth beneath. "Hi, I'm Hector Manada, CEO and founder of Dynamis. As a new employee, I welcome you into the D family. You have been chosen because of your skills and character, to become part of something greater. For we at Dynamis and its subsidiaries, we are more than a corporate conglomerate. 33 years ago, from the moment I established this company, our guiding principle has always been the same: what should the world look like?" Ryan knew a lot about Dynamis' official history, mostly because they advertised it constantly. A 26-year-old Hector Manada created the pharmaceutical company in Spain long before the Genome Wars, expanding its domains to shipping, warehouses, agriculture, food, biotech, manufacturing, oil, retail, and pretty much everything else. Ironically, they had just transferred their HQ to Italy to get closer to their burgeoning shipping activities the year before Mecron bombed everyone. This stroke of luck saved most of their leadership when the old world collapsed, and since Dynamis had a finger in every pie all over Western Europe before the Genome Wars, it had the resources needed to thrive once the dust settled. Since Spain had suffered a lot more than Italy from genome's depredations, Dynamis had transferred most of its remaining infrastructure away from their homeland, founding New Rome as their personal stronghold. Through their mergers with other corporations and subsidiaries, they controlled Corsica, Sardinia, Majorca, the south of Spain, western Italy, the oil fields of Libya, and currently contested Sicily to local genome warlords. In short, Dynamis' board was well on their way to become the face of post-genome Europe, if Augustus didn't beat them to it. Ryan decided to move at the back alongside the lone wolf, since it was the closest to the door. He intended to leave as soon as the video ended. Sitting at the back, he tried to listen to the video for 10 seconds, before getting bored and checking stuff on his phone. "Is there Wi-Fi here?" Ryan asked his neighbor. "I see a Dynamite Wi-Fi, but it's password protected. You see the Wi-Fi box here?" Blondie pointed at a device in a corner of the room. "The password is written." Ryan stopped time before he could finish his sentence. Moving as quickly as a snake, he searched inside his coat for a mini tracker, quickly opened the wireless box's back, swiftly put the tracker inside, and then closed the device. On the back, the man finished, Ryan having returned to his original spot with nobody noticing. "It's incredibly long and case-sensitive though. Took me 5 tries to get it right." The courier feigned a groan of laziness, his eyes still on his phone. The tracker had already activated, sending him information. Ryan had placed similar devices all over the floor during the day, which should grant him a way inside Dynamis systems. The courier needed a quick scan for vulnerabilities which he could exploit in future loops to get inside, and didn't particularly care if he was identified afterward. If anything, Ryan considered committing suicide and find a way to skip this internship phase entirely. He was a creature of fun, and the staff here seemed determined to drain him of every drop of life. Putting his phone back in his pocket and having consumed enough Dynamis content for a lifetime, Ryan didn't pay attention to the video. Instead, his curious eyes wandered to his neighbor, who seemed to share his disinterest. As it turned out, Blondie was busy looking at photos of the metagang. Ryan immediately recognizing pictures of Sarin and Ghoul, alongside that of a large horrifically obese bald man with menswear straight out of the 50s. His scarred face and prominent teeth reminded Ryan of a hippo. Blondie noticed Ryan's curiosity and felt the urge to give details. "Adam, the Meta's big bad boss." "I could tell from the paunch," Ryan replied, approaching to get a better look at the photos. "He's somewhere in the city, but nobody knows his exact location," Blondie mumbled, his voice rising with frustration. The recruits closest to them looked over their shoulders, before focusing back on the video. Too much counter-surveillance, no electronic trail, and he contacts his men, not the other way around. The only people who might know are his lieutenants, Psyshock, Acid Rain, Frank the Mad. Ryan decided to make the meta one of his main priorities for this restart. These psychos were far too organized and well-behaved. 4 years ago, Adam could barely keep his junkies in check, and never without a healthy dose of family-unfriendly violence. "My, they have grown very large over the years," the courier mused, as he examined the file closely. According to Dynamis information, the metagang now included around 50 members. "I still remember when they could barely fill a minibus." This caught Blondie's interest. "You met the meta before?" 4 years ago, Ryan replied. "It was just Adam, Psyshock, and a few hanger-ons back then. They didn't differ much from a normal psychopath, except the fondness for ultra-violence and medieval execution methods." "Anything you can tell me about them?" Blondie whispered, making it hard for Ryan to listen to the video's sound. "Their tactics, their organization, their weaknesses? If you want the full story, my feline friend, Psyshock tried to convince a member of my old group to join them. It didn't go well, and it ended in a bloodbath. Typical psychos. Oh, and Psyshock is a sadistic creep who can hijack your nervous system with his wires if he catches you. Telepaths were some of the few genomes with the ability to do Ryan lasting damage, by tampering with his memories or destroying his personality. He avoided them like the plague whenever he could. Psyshock, though, the courier might seek out and beat up on principle. He needs physical contact? Blondie asked, scribbling the information on a paper sheet. Good to know. Does he need to maintain physical contact too? Yep, but the disconnection is incredibly painful for the victim, Ryan explained while putting his legs on the sofa, taking as much space as humanly possible. So my feline friend, are you planning a mutant mice hunt? I wish, he grumbled, his eyes wandering to the video. I asked Enrique if I could follow Pro League members on patrols, and instead I must guest star in their new movie. He said it would introduce me to the public better than any action in the field. Since when do you need authorization to start trouble? Ryan asked mirthfully. What's the point of being a hero if you can't legally sublimate your violent urges and receive acclaim for it? It seemed to amuse him. Hey, by the way, I haven't introduced myself. Ryan shook his hand. I'm Quick Save. I'm immortal, but don't tell anyone. Atom Cat, he replied. I can blow stuff up on touch. Oh, the Mafia boy. The handshake turned into an iron grip. How do you know that? He hissed. Are you a spy? Enrique told you? That bastard, I should never have listened. Hey! The video paused and everyone looked at the duo with angry gazes. While Ryan remained unfazed, Atom Cat bristled a bit. Nothing like a shared embarrassment to start a new friendship. A marketing guy in a suit and tie looked at the duo, letting the awkward silence set in. Are you not interested, he began, the frozen face of Hector Manada behind him, in the company where you will work for the next 5 years? I am interested, sir, Atom Cat lied through his teeth. It won't happen again, sir. Absolutely not, Ryan replied bluntly, but please continue, we'll be as quiet and dutiful as unpaid interns. The marketing guy glared at the courier, imitated by the other recruits. It was kindergarten all over again. If you make another comment like that, Time Lord, I will ask you to politely leave the room without a word. The new name hurt, physically. Wait, they could leave early? When the marketing guy received no answer, he put back the video on. Atom Cat waited for everyone to lose interest in them, before whispering into Ryan's ear. If you don't answer, I'm blowing you up. Same if I let go of your hand unwillingly. Can you keep a secret? Ryan looked around as if they were being spied on, and then approached Atom Cat's ear to whisper back into it. I come back from the future. I used a DeLorean. Your references are quite outdated, Atom Cat replied. His grip grew tighter, and the courier felt his skin heat up. What do you know? That we are close enough to kiss, Ryan replied, his free hand shifting to grab a weapon. That your parents are Augusti Capos, that you joined the other team out of teenage rebellion, and that you should rethink having children. Atom Cat looked down, noticing the hidden knife very close to his manly parts. Thankfully, nobody had noticed, their eyes focusing on the screen. My power will be faster, he replied. And I'm very good at neutering cats, kitty. At least a spy would have been subtler, Atom Cat mused, his eyes squinting behind the mask. So you don't know who my parents are? Their actual identity. The courier rolled his shoulders. Atom Cat looked at the other recruits, and spoke only when certain they didn't listen, with a voice so low the courier could barely hear it. They're Mars and Venus. Ryan gasped in shock. You're Cupid? But where are the wings and bow? Atom Cat marked a short pause. Not the mythological gods, you idiot, he said, finally releasing Ryan's hand. It takes some kind of elitist narcissism to name yourself after deities. As if you stood above normal people, like mice and men. I heard there was a genome who tried to use the name Little Jesus once, the courier replied, putting back the knife up his sleeve. He didn't last long. Augustus fried him alive, Atom Cat replied, relaxing a bit. You're not an Augusti? No, you wouldn't have risked a DNA scan otherwise. They've been sending people asking me to come back into the fold a lot lately. And why did you leave it in the first place? Ryan asked, crossing his legs and faking interest in the video when the marketing guy looked at him. Now it showed Hector with children before a school sponsored by Dynamis, the poor kid struggling to smile at the camera. If you knew half the things they do, you'd understand, Atom Cat replied angrily. Their bliss drug kills thousands each year, their weapons slay more, and that's what makes it to the news. The kidnappings, the murders, the racketeering, and the prostitution. After a while, I just couldn't take it anymore. I thought I could make a difference at Il Miglior. Did you? Not yet, he grumbled. The Monada and Augustus have been at each other's throat for years, so I thought they had plans to take him down, but apparently Dynami's motto is, don't rock the boat. Enrique seemed quite motivated when I met him, Ryan pointed out. He and his brother Alphonse, yes, but their father, Adam Cat, glared at Hector's image. Don't rock the boat. Ryan tried his best to watch the video for 30 more seconds and quickly realized he would go mad if this continued. Okay, he said, crawling on the sofa closer to the door, I'm out. Where are you going? Adam Cat asked, curious. To Rust Town to beat up the meta. The would-be superhero appraised Ryan's words for a long minute. You want to go to their new territory and what, pick a fight with the first psycho you meet? You make it sound so complicated. Dynamis will cut your salary if you do that, Adam Cat replied weakly. Maybe even fire you. Ryan considered the statement thoughtfully, remembered that he had more money stashed away than he would earn at Il Miglior, then shrugged it off. He was confident he would learn more about Dynamis' activities by hacking them than by following a week-long seminar. Your nickname is Quicksave. Adam Cat mumbled the name, finally remembering where he had heard it. Wait, didn't you beat up Ghoul with a golf club? I had to buy one just for that occasion, and I almost didn't make it in time. Still, I improved my short game by quite a lot. Ryan rose up from the sofa, looking casual and ignoring the marketing guy glaring at him. Now, are you coming or not? Adam Cat looked at Ryan, then at the video, and noticed it still had 57 minutes left before its conclusion. The young hero immediately rose up from the sofa, gathered the photos and reports, before following the courier towards the door. Time Lord, Adam Cat, the video is not over yet, the marketing guy said, trying to sound firm and failing utterly. I'm escorting him out of the building to make sure he never returns, sir, Adam Cat promised. Apparently, in spite of his spiel, getting rid of the courier made the marketing guy a lot happier. Teacher's pet, Ryan accused Adam Cat, as he closed the door behind them. You have a car? The young superhero asked. I can only drive a motorcycle. I have the best of them, but before we go, Ryan cleared his throat, do you know where they make cashmere suits? Floor 20 of the Dynamis HQ, right next to this building, Adam Cat replied, clearly well informed. Why the question? Because I will get a cashmere suit, even if I have to fight for it. No matter how many times he would visit it, Ryan would never get used to Rust Town. The whole place reeked of misery and despair. Adam Cat seemed to share his sentiment, as both drove through the slums with the Plymouth's windows closed and the air cleaner on. It's even worse than I thought, he said, looking at a streetlight hanging by its cable, threatening to fall on the road at any moment. Way worse. You never went mice hunting here? No, my family lives in the wealthy patrician district. I lived a very sheltered life, truth be told, even during the wars. So a house cat then? If so, Ryan's threat of neutering him must have hit a bit too close to home. I guess I went stray, his sidekick mused. I do wonder why this place is such a dump compared to the rest of the city though, Ryan said. It reminded him of the bad old days when he scoured ruins for supplies, with bloodstream breathing down his neck. It belonged to the region's original inhabitants, Adam Cat explained, those who lived in the Gulf of Naples and escaped its bombing. They managed to survive, in spite of the poisons and plagues, but when Dynamis took over the region, the company forcefully relocated them to make room for its own people. I guess the homeless and the diseased didn't fit into their picture of a shining capital city. There are plans to renovate the area, but they haven't materialized yet. He shook his head in disappointment, the sound of a cell phone's alarm interrupting the discussion. Adam Cat looked at his mobile, but didn't take the call. Ryan glanced at the screen, seeing Adam Cat had missed 15 calls from a certain Fortuna and 7 from one Narcinia. My sisters, the superhero said before the courier could ask questions. I keep in touch with them, but they want me back and don't take no for an answer. That means they love you, Ryan replied without any hint of sarcasm. He could sympathize with people wishing to reunite with their family. The courier did wonder what made Adam Cat consider Dynamis to be a better option over the Augusti though. Ryan suddenly wondered if Len, like Adam Cat, wouldn't want to meet him, but immediately brushed off these thoughts. Of course she would rejoice when they met again, after so many years. It was just his anxiety talking. I love them too, but as long as they keep supporting the Bliss business Another person called Adam Cat, who stared at the name on the screen for several seconds, his gaze undecipherable. Livia. Instead of ignoring the call like the others, Adam Cat outright turned down his phone, sighed, and messed with the radio to change his mind. When he finally settled on a channel, Ryan glared at his sidekick. Hip-hop really? You don't like it, brother? No, I don't. Ryan changed the channel back to the Daft Biopunk Chrono radio. The music switched into a combination of electronic, synth, and alien rhythms. Nice sound, Adam Cat commented, as they passed through narrow streets. Where are we going? The Meta took over the junkyard area as their base, Ryan said. It's located at Rust Town Center. I'm stopping you right here. I'm all for ambushing a lone psycho, maybe two, but attacking their home turf with only the two of us is suicide. If Ryan had been alone, he would have tried anyway, but he wasn't going to lead his sidekick to certain death. Thing is, children have been missing in the area, according to my information. I've located an orphanage south of the junkyard, and I thought we should check it out. Atom Cat instantly tensed. Children? You're surprised? Ryan asked. The courier would love to say he was, but he had come to expect the worst when psychos were involved. I'm surprised it didn't get reported, the superhero replied, the Plymouth passing near the city's water reservoir. Unlike the rest of the neighborhood, Dynamis heavily protected the area, armored soldiers protecting its confines. Then again, nobody cares about this place. Ryan did. Eventually, the duo made their way to an isolated building surrounded by a dusty wasteland. The paint on the cinder block walls had vanished, peeled by time, and half the windows were broken. A large fenced area extended left of the building, housing dozens, if not hundreds of stray cats and dogs. The distressed noises they made and the smell they produced immediately overwhelmed the duo, as they parked the car nearby and stepped out of it. That's not an orphanage, Atom Cat said with horror, while Ryan grabbed his fisty gauntlets and put them on. The air here was less polluted than the rest of Rust Town, but not by much. It's an animal shelter. It's both, Ryan realized, glancing at the animals with sympathy. The sheer aura of trapped desperation they gave off made him feel sick inside. They found 2 children between 10 and 12 at the orphanage's entrance, playing with a dirty golden retriever near the open doors. One was a black boy with acid burn scars on half his cheek, the other a skinny brunette in a pink dress unfit for her size. Hey fellas. Ryan waved a hand at them. The little girl instantly raised a crappy revolver at his head, having hidden it beneath her dress, while the boy clung to the dog. Back off, druggie, she told Ryan. Or I'm blowing your head off. Ah, that was so cute. Ryan froze time, grabbed the gun, and replaced it with a rock pebble. When time resumed, he had put the gun inside his coat, much to the girl's surprise. But. Hey, I'm quick save, Ryan said, raising his thumb like in a commercial. I'm immortal but don't tell anyone, and this is my trusty sidekick Hello Kitty. Don't push it, Quickie, Atom Cat replied, the nickname making Ryan feel dirty inside. We aren't here to hurt anyone. Can we talk to the staff? There's no staff, the boy said, still afraid. The dog nuzzled his face to reassure him, and didn't make any hostile move towards the genomes. Grandpa took care of us, but he's gone now, the little girl replied while glaring at Ryan. A druggie shanked him in an alley months ago. She said it so casually, it sounded almost normal. Wait, there's no adult? The more he heard, the more Atom Cat grew agitated. But how do you survive? We can take care of ourselves, the girl said with a proud face. We scavenge stuff up and take the trash. Mama sends up food and money every week. The little girl kicked the boy in the leg before he could finish his sentence. Ouch, Sarah. Mama? Atom Cat asked. The little girl kept her mouth closed, the other boy imitating her. Sarah, that's your name? Give me back my gun. She ignored Atom Cat and instead kept glaring at Ryan. Give it back. I can't in good conscience return such a crappy revolver, Ryan replied, having a reputation to uphold. Let me buy you a real gun, like a Desert Eagle. Then you can credibly threaten people. Quick save. Atom Cat chided him, before trying to build a rapport with the kids. Who is this Mama, your caretaker? Can we talk to her? No, Sarah replied stubbornly. She's busy. Busy doing what? Busy, Sarah replied, crossing her arms. What do you want? As Atom Cat tried to argue with the kids that they only wanted to protect them, Ryan sensed tension in the air. The pets grew agitated, barking and meowing. They could sense predators nearby. A rusty, black minibus approached the orphanage, parking 5 meters away from the entrance. Other kids appeared at the windows, attracted by the pets' racket. 3 men stepped out of the car, although they barely counted as such. Ryan instantly recognized one of them as the mosquito monster that wrecked his Plymouth in a previous loop. The second was a scrawny bald man dressed like a plumber. Disfiguring tumors grew out of his flesh and bloodshot eyes. He carried a rusty pipe wrench, and his smile showed rows of rotten fangs. As for the third, Ryan instantly recognized the tall and slender figure, in spite of his heavy black overcoat, hat, scarf, and sunglasses. The way he walked, like a shambling doll mimicking a man, the aura of quiet menace he gave off. Psyshock, Atom's second in command. The 3 psychos glanced at the group with menacing stares, Atom Cat instantly moving to shield the kids. So did the golden retriever, who barked at the newcomers with surprising ferocity. Psyshock himself focused entirely on Ryan. My, isn't it little Cesare, he said with a robotic digital voice. How you have grown. Ryan flinched. Surprised? Once I have connected to a nervous system, I can recognize its unique brainwave pattern anywhere. Like a lost signal, calling home to daddy. His heavy sunglasses glittered under the twilight. I thought the carnival killed your father? He wasn't my father, and yes they did, the courier said, cold and focused. He had last crossed path with that creep 4 years ago, before he drank his elixir. Even if Ryan now had superpowers and could defend himself, Psyshock's mere presence made him feel uneasy. How are the scars he gave you, Lightbulb? They healed, Psyshock replied, his digital voice turned threatening. Mosquito readied his claw-like hands, itching for a fight. If you survived, I assume Little Len did too. Good. I never got over missing the opportunity to extract her genius brain. What, kids aren't enough for you? Ryan taunted him. I have no interest in this meat, but we require a unique service from these goblins. I'm afraid nothing short of pygmies will do the trick. Don't worry, we'll take good care of them, even feed them. Adam is very fond of children, Mosquito cackled, the other psycho letting out a bestial grunt. That too, Psyshock mused with cruel amusement. Kids, gather your friends, and get into the car quietly. Behind me, Ryan said. He's got candies. Yeah, the kids aren't getting anywhere near you, Adam Cat said, turning to Sarah. Do you have a basement? She nodded slowly. Go hide there, and don't come out until we say so. The noise of a plane echoed above the neighborhood, while the children and their dog fled inside the orphanage. I would check your math if I were you, Psyshock said while trailing the children with his gaze. It made him look like a deadly wolf observing helpless fawns, much to Ryan's disgust. Wires shifted behind the psycho's scarf and sunglasses, and electricity came out of his gloves. You're outnumbered and outmatched. Why weren't they attacking? Because they were worried they might kill the kids in the crossfire if they acted too early? They shouldn't be thinking that far ahead, the sight of genomes being reason enough to try and drink the hero's elixir-laced blood. These psychos were too stable, too careful, as if... You're well fed, Ryan realized. You have a supply of elixir. Psyshock appraised him for a few seconds, before barking orders. Mongrel, Mosquito, capture little Chazere and kill the spare. I hoped you'd say that, Mosquito said, Mongrel hissing at Adam Cat like an animal. I guess Adam can't be mad at us for eating a few strays. Both groups glared at one another, but Ryan couldn't focus, the sound of the plane growing stronger and stronger. Closer. Ryan barely had the time to raise his eyes, as it landed right in the middle of the Mexican standoff. The crash blew dust in all directions, Adam Cat taking a leap back on reflex and the psychos retreating behind their minibus for protection. Only Ryan remained still, unfazed, as an enormous gold-plated robot stood right in front of him. Quick save, Vulcan's voice echoed from hidden loudspeakers, the suit's camera eyes focusing on the courier. You have denied my invitation. Ryan put his hands in his pockets and whistled, his mask protecting him from the dust. Adam Cat quickly got back on his feet, his eyes widening upon recognizing the newcomer. Vulcan's camera eyes briefly glanced at the hero, but quickly focused back on Ryan with murderous rage. By going to that dragon whore without even considering my offer, you have done more than scorn me. You have insulted me, and for that you will die. She towered above Ryan, a cannon pointed at his head. Any last words? Ryan gave serious thought to the question and then answered. You're so short, your mother has to use a microscope to see you. Vulcan remained completely still, the towering armor casting the courier in its oppressive shadow. I got a better one. Ryan snapped his fingers. You're so short that your feet always dangle when you sit on a chair. The silence grew even tenser, broken by strange noises. Ryan recognized them as guns and missiles being loaded. Psyshock and his cronies recovered from the surprise attack, moving to encircle everyone and flank Adam Cat from the sides. Tough crowd here. How about this one? You're almost tall enough for Wyvern to take you seriously. Vulcan let out a snarl and opened fire. Ryan had been shot at more times than he could count. Unlike psychos or special cases like Augustus, all of the courier's abilities, from his save point to the time stop, derived from a single unifying power. It was only through training and experimentation that Ryan discovered its multiple applications. In particular, it took him years of looping to realize he had an enhanced sense of timing. The more he experienced a situation, the better Ryan became at predicting and reacting to it. If someone used a martial arts move once, he would subtly anticipate it next time anybody else tried it. The courier could predict when one would toss a smoke bomb to the ground, and catch it before being consciously aware of it. This made learning physical skills almost trivial. It wasn't all powerful, since there were situations when even the fastest reflexes couldn't make a difference, like getting beheaded by an invisible blade or hit by a laser as fast as light. Lacking any super speed, Ryan couldn't truly dodge bullets or artillery. But he could predict someone's line of fire before they pressed the trigger. His body would then subtly shift, projectiles would miss, and give people the illusion that he could dodge even bullets. Combined with the time stop, the courier seemed impossible to hit from the point of view of outsiders. So when Vulcan attacked him with her cannon arm, Ryan paused time for a split second and dodged out of the line of fire. A dense shell blasted the orphanage's wall behind them, collapsing cinder blocks and opening a path towards what seemed to be a kitchen. The trapped pets behind the fence panicked, some frenzied cats managing to escape by climbing. "Vulcan, it's an orphanage!" Atom Cat shouted, but before he could rush to Ryan's help, the Metagang flanked him. The hero avoided a deadly punch from Mosquito and a small fireball from Mongrel. Atom Cat's movements were chaotic, showcasing his lack of formal training, but his natural agility made up for it. To her credit, Vulcan froze for a split second, vaguely ashamed. Instead of assaulting Ryan with heavy artillery and risk destroying the shelter, she switched to hand-to-hand combat. Mini-turbo reactors activated on the mechanical suit's back in short bursts, causing the 5-meter-tall metal monster to move at the speed of a racing car. Showing extreme agility honed over countless loops, Ryan backflipped to dodge a giant fist to the face, and then a stomp. "I have to hand it to you," the courier began, before switching the meaning of his sentence, "because you can't reach it." Vulcan's attacks grew more frenzied, and when she no longer had the orphanage in her line of fire, she switched to heavy weaponry. Her mech's shoulders opened to reveal minigun turrets, firing hundreds of pellets at Ryan. The courier used a mix of time stop and timing to avoid the attacks, trying to circle the machine and find a hatch for the cockpit. Psyshock, meanwhile, threw away his overcoat, hat and sunglasses, revealing his true self to the world. He had long shed his flesh, replaced with thousands of black wires which he usually shaped into a facsimile of a humanoid form. The only organ that survived his mutation was his skull, which left his biomechanical brain exposed. His neon eyes reminded Ryan of two bright torchlights. Psyshock reshaped his wires to form 8 elongated arms, turning himself into a horrific mockery of a spider. While Vulcan occupied Ryan and Atom Cat fought his cronies, the Psycho leaped over the area in a single bound, going straight for the orphanage. Realizing this, Ryan decided to dump Vulcan and pursue Psyshock, but the genius didn't let him. Her hand lunged at the courier, big enough to crush him whole, while her miniguns provided suppressing fire. In spite of her fearsome armor, Ryan could tell that Vulcan didn't have much direct combat experience. Her movements were clumsy, and while her weapons aimed true, there was no foresight involved, no human cunning or improvisation. She probably outsourced control to a basic AI. Her armor was also clearly a prototype designed to fight a big and aerial target, instead of an agile and stylish gentleman. In short, Vulcan had brought a wyvern buster to a quick-save fight. Vulcan could have won if she had carpet-bombed the area from above, but instead, she chose to announce her presence and make the battle close and personal. Ryan could sense a desire to prove herself in a fight, perhaps to outshine Wyvern. Girls got issues. Stopping time for 10 seconds, Ryan moved to the armor's left, dodging her hand and bullets. Then, he carefully punched the elbow joint with Fisty, aiming to maximize pressure damage. When time resumed, the recoil applied in full, and the mech's arm shattered at the elbow point. The forearm fell to the ground, electrical jolts coming out of the damaged parts. As he guessed when he first observed it at the armory, much like medieval armor, Vulcan paid for her suit's enhanced mobility with weakness in the joints.
"What's this?" Ryan mused. "A short circuit? You aren't funny, Romano."
Vulcan complained through her armor's loudspeakers, clearly jealous of his peerless wit. "You think you are, but you aren't.
Come on, don't be small-minded."
As she retaliated with another volley of bullets, Ryan froze time and rushed to the orphanage, Psyshock having vanished through the hole Vulcan made in the wall. Meanwhile, Atom Cat fared little better. Mosquito had taken flight like the insect he was, diving down to try and impale the hero with his stinger. While Atom Cat could easily dodge, Mongrel limited his movements. The strange Psycho flickering in and out of existence, propelling himself with short bursts of wind while attempting to hit the hero with his hand tool. Sometimes, he threw a fireball here and there, small fires starting all over the wasteland park. Fireballs, limited invisibility, air conditioning. Ryan recognized these powers as those from knockoff elixirs sold by Dynamis. Mongrel must have drunk a cocktail of them. Since the powers gained were but a shadow of those of true elixirs, his body managed to handle more than 2 at the cost of his mental faculties. Still, even if forced on the defensive, Atom Cat fought hard to regain the initiative in this 2-on-1 fight. He attempted to punch Mongrel, his hands shining with crimson energy, but in spite of his bestial snarls, the Psycho remained careful not to give his foe any opening. When time resumed, Ryan had managed to reach the orphanage, only to backtrack when a dozen wires came out of the hole and threatened to catch him in a net. Psyshock emerged from the hole, having grabbed 4 kids with his tentacle arms. Sarah, her friend, and 2 twin girls no older than 8. His cold alien eyes glanced at Ryan with disdain while one of his wires was making its way inside one of the twins' nose, traces of blood and fur all over his body. Without thinking twice, Ryan grabbed 3 throwing knives, intending to target Psyshock's head. In response, the psycho moved Sarah in the way of Ryan's line of fire, the girl screaming in fear. Ryan froze in shock, which Psyshock immediately exploited to send a tentacle at him. Suffering from his time stops cooldown, the courier couldn't freeze the clock as the arm hit him with the speed of a harpoon. He managed to grab it with his hands as he was tossed to his back, the wires trying to reach his skull.
Quick save!
Atom Cat shouted, but Mosquito exploited the opportunity to tackle him from the side, throwing the hero through the pen's fence. Dogs and cats immediately poured through, fleeing in all directions. Shush, it's easier if you don't struggle, Cesare, Psyshock whispered to Ryan, both through his mouth and that of the child he had connected to. Needles appeared at the end of his wires, for an intracranial hijacking. Just go limp and let me in.
We'll be one.
Yeah, if the danger of his intrusive telepathy, no matter its physical limitations, hadn't caused Ryan to feel murderous animosity towards Psyshock, the child abuse did it. Apparently, Vulcan thought the same. Showing basic human decency, she stopped paying attention to Ryan and instead raised her armor's last functional hand at Psyshock.
Drop the kids, mutant, she warned. I won't ask twice.
Out of my way, woman, Psyshock replied dismissively, positioning his hostages to protect himself from Vulcan's weaponry. Meanwhile, Mongrel moved towards the pen to finish off Atom Cat while Mosquito flew in circles above them. Some dogs who had remained behind instead of fleeing barked angrily at the genomes present, but were too afraid to attack. In response, Vulcan's fingers opened to reveal holes and unleashed plasma streams at Psyshock. The genius was very careful not to hit the kids, instead, cutting through wires with laser precision. The damaged parts fell off the ground like beheaded snakes, quickly rusting away into organic dust. Exploiting Psyshock's distraction, Ryan stopped time, cut the wires closest to him with his knives, and then rushed towards the children. With a swift swing, he severed the wires holding the twins and caught them while time resumed. The wire invading the hostage's nose kept moving on its own once severed from the hole but quickly fell to the ground. Psyshock answered by sending his wires in all directions, targeting both Ryan and Vulcan with a rain of tentacles. The courier fled while carrying the twins in his arms, while the Auguste simply powered through the attack, her thick armor deflecting everything. Meanwhile, while Atom Cat recovered from his last blow, the shelter's remaining dogs found the courage to try and bite Mongrel when he approached. With a bestial snarl, the psycho raised both hands, channeling a fireball through the right and a swirling vortex of wind with the left. The combination created a torrent of flames which consumed the pets whole. The poor dogs screamed in pain as the improvised flamethrower incinerated them alive, Mongrel's hisses transforming into maniacal laughter. Atom Cat rushed at Mongrel while he was distracted, and this time managed to grab his head with his hand. The psycho's body turned red, his colors muted by a crimson hue, and then exploded. Scratch that, Mongrel was vaporized. His flesh weakly detonated, with barely enough strength to blow air, yet the blast annihilated him without leaving a trace. Clothes, skin, even the tool he carried, they all turned to dust. Clearly, when cornered, Atom Cat had no problem killing. This made Mosquito dive back at him, with murder on his mind. The young superhero froze, as if an idea crossed his mind, before grabbing a pebble on the ground and throwing it at Mosquito. The rock turned red, charged with Atom Cat's power. The psycho protected himself with his arms, the pebble detonating on impact and propelling him against his own minibus. The car's alarm activated, and combined with the noise from the battle, Ryan could barely hear himself. Atom Cat could modulate the strength of his explosions and even delay them. Nice. Ryan himself managed to dodge both Psyshock's attacks and drag the twins to a safe spot, one child despondent, and the other crying in fear. It's okay, you're safe, Ryan tried to console them, brushing their black hair with his hands. Heroes are here. His good deed for the day done, the courier immediately returned to the fray. Psyshock had used all his wires to restrain Vulcan, trying to keep the mecha anchored to the ground while desperately trying to find a way inside the pilot cockpit. He looked like a giant squid, trying to restrain a whale. Like before, that despicable bastard used his captives as human shields, preventing the Auguste from using her weapons in close quarters. Enraged, Ryan charged at Psyshock, tossing knives at his skull. Wires deflected them, but this caught the criminal's attention. A teleportation power, the psycho hissed at Ryan. You have become a violet? Normally, I would quip back, but in your case, you will go out the way of the rhinoceros, Ryan said with dead seriousness, fisty raised. Painfully. Before Psyshock could react, Ryan stopped the clock again, leaped, and punched the psycho through the skull in the frozen time. His fist gored through the psycho's metal bones and brain both like a donut. Ryan liked to play with his enemies, but he knew better than to give any telepath a chance to fight back. Especially someone as loathsome as Psyshock. When time resumed, Psyshock's mutant body collapsed to the ground in a mess of wires and brain matter, dragging Sarah and the other kid down with him. Ryan quickly caught Sarah with his hands, while Vulcan grabbed the other. You know, Shorty, if you weren't trying to murder me, I would call you halfway heroic, Ryan said, putting Sarah on the ground while Vulcan did the same with her charge. Little girl, can you take your friend and move away? The big bot is waiting for you to go to shoot me. Little Sarah nodded profusely, quickly grabbing her fellow kid's hand and running away to safety. Vulcan remained silent, watching the children get out of the way with grim vigilance. Ryan couldn't tell if it was regret, longing, or something else, but she seemed strangely subdued. Then, when certain the children were far away, Vulcan attempted to fire plasma beams at Ryan's face without a word. Expecting the attack, Ryan quickly stopped time and threw knives at her cameras, blinding Vulcan before she could open fire. Atom Cat, meanwhile, attempted to punch Mosquito and blow him up alongside the minibus, but the insect flew away when he moved too close. An enormous shadow flew over the battlefield, followed by a mighty roar. Everyone present froze, from the tiniest animal to Vulcan herself, as a gigantic flying form came into sight. An enormous, 60-foot-long white-scaled lizard, with an elongated neck, dragonfly wings, and golden eyes. Her claws could cut through steel, her tail ended in a flail, and a suit with Dynamis and Il Miglior's logos cover her chest. Wyvern. Once she had finished showing off, the dragon landed right on Vulcan, stomping her mech underfoot with such force, it created a mini crater below. If Ryan hadn't damaged her cameras, the Auguste might have been able to fly away, but now Wyvern kept her pinned to the ground under her enormous weight. Mosquito immediately attempted to fly away. The dragon, quicker, raised her hand. Squash. Wyvern slapped Mosquito from above, the same way a human did with a fly. The hit flattened the insectoid like a smear on the ground, his limbs and wings broken, green blood flowing out of open wounds. Then, without skipping a beat, Wyvern slammed Vulcan's mech to the ground, smashing the miniguns. The Auguste attempted to activate her mini-turbo reactors to fly away, but couldn't escape the dragon's iron grip. Don't damage the reactor, WYVY. Ryan shouted at her, knowing the danger. Extract the cockpit. The cockpit. Seemingly having heard him, Wyvern's assault turned almost surgical in its execution, the dragon carefully extracting the human within with her claws without damaging the rest of the suit. Before the disheveled Auguste could react, Wyvern tossed her to the ground and Atom Cat moved to restrain her. The intervention had lasted mere seconds. Ryan checked the mech, but thankfully, Vulcan had the foresight to install failsafes in her armor's fusion reactor. The city wouldn't die an atomic death, this time. Instead of inspiring fear, Wyvern's victory caused great joy in the kids, who let out shouts of jubilation after a short silence. Only the child whom Psyshock had connected to remained despondent, her twin trying to wake her up. Ryan immediately rushed to their side to give medical help. Thankfully, he had spent enough loops studying medicine and biology to give her a checkup. While intrusive, Psyshock's orifice invasion usually didn't damage the subject's key areas of the brain. The poor child suffered from a mild concussion but would survive. Is she okay? Sarah asked Ryan, the euphoria replaced with worry, as the orphans surrounded them. Yes, he said, using his trench coat to remove the blood from his patient's nose. But she will need rest. They killed the Doogies, one of the children said, looking in horror at the animal's burning remains and the destroyed fence. Wyvern observed the scene for a moment, from the hole in the orphanage to Psyshock's rusting remains. Quick save, we are going to have a long conversation, she said, her powerful voice more that of a roaring T-Rex than a human. You too, Atom Cat. What were you two thinking, going into hostile territory without authorization nor backup? You could have died. They were trying to kidnap children. Atom Cat defended himself. Then you should have called me for reinforcements, Wyvern replied with a firm tone. You were lucky I trailed Vulcan to make sure she didn't cause a mess. Speaking of Vulcan, she raged as Atom Cat kept her face against the ground, unable to escape his grip. Wyvern transformed back into a human, her suit adapting to her new size while she looked at the Auguste with a mix of vindication and pity. You can only blame yourself for this, Jasmine. Fuck you, Laura, the Auguste genius replied, bitter and angry. Fuck you. Does somebody have a rope? Atom Cat asked, getting sick of restraining Vulcan with his mere hands. I have handcuffs and a blindfold in my car, Ryan said, Wyvern raising an eyebrow at him. I dated weird people. The superheroine glanced at both Ryan and Atom Cat, hands on her waist. You're both grounded. Yes, Dragon Mom, Ryan groaned, before turning towards Mosquito, agonizing in a puddle made of his own blood. He's still alive. Barely, Wyvern replied warily. Why did you kidnap the kids, asshole? Atom Cat snarled at the psycho. Suck my sting, Mosquito hissed. Answer the question, and we will give you medical care, Wyvern said firmly. While she was angry at her charges for acting on their lonesome, she had no pity to spare for the psycho. In your current condition, even with your enhanced metabolism, you will bleed out within minutes. Mosquito remained silent for a few seconds, probably weighing the odds of risking his boss killing him for snitching, versus dying right now. Survival instinct being a powerful force, he decided to speak. It's the place, the shafts are too small for adults, and these crazy robots they shoot genomes on sight.
Robots.
Wyvern repeated.
What place?
Ryan probed him, curious. A bunker Adam wants to access, below the junkyard. Don't know what, Mosquito hissed in agony. Please the pain, it's atrocious. I've dialed the medics when I saw the kids, Wyvern said, touching her earpiece. They should arrive soon. And with these words, Ryan handcuffed Vulcan, having helped save an orphanage. He hoped his karma meter would go up after that. Other kids emerged from the orphanage, the battle over, and immediately rushed to Wyvern's side, pestering her with autographs. Others moved to help their wounded member, Ryan hearing the name Julia being thrown around a lot. Hey Kitty, if you can create explosive projectiles, why don't you carry throwing knives? Ryan asked Adam Cat, that detail having bothered him. It would be much more practical than grabbing improvised projectiles. I didn't realize I could use my power this way, Adam Cat admitted, a bit sheepish. I knew I could delay the detonation by a few seconds, but I never thought I could combine that with projectiles to attack at range. It's only in the thick of action that it clicked for me. Well, you're still green. And he trailed off trying to find a good quip, Violet. Wow, I will let you stew for 1 hour until you find a decent comeback. Truthfully, Kitty should be proud to have done so well on raw talent alone. Ryan himself looked at his cell phone to see if the battle had made it to the news. Instead, he received a notification from his devices inside IL Miglior's HQ. Backdoor detected. Ryan wasn't the only one spying Dynamis through its computer systems. He set out to track down the IP to investigate, in case it was the assassin's doing. Hey kids, I know the perfect way to cheer you up, Ryan proposed, raising his phone. Who wants a group photo with Wyvern? Me. The kids all raised their hands, much to Wyvern's embarrassment and Adam Cat's amusement. Even grumpy little Sarah seemed a bit enthusiastic. They spent minutes waiting for the private security doing funny selfies, Vulcan glaring at them and Mosquito bleeding to death in the background. Ryan hated hospital rooms. Even if useful for sanitization purposes, the constant whiteness made him feel sick and isolated. Hours had gone by since the orphanage battle, its occupants evacuated by Dynamis and moved to one of the company's hospitals. Psyshock's victim had been put in an artificial slumber, laying on a warm bed with a respirator and brain scanning devices near her. Wyvern stood near the window, clearly struggling against the urge to sleep. Will she be okay? Ryan asked Wyvern, both having stood watch over the girl for a while. I know from experience you can recover from Psyshock's brain connection, but I have yet to see someone sedated afterward. Medics said her brainwave patterns are highly abnormal, Wyvern told him. They will keep her in observation for a few days until they are certain she won't suffer from sequelae. This worried Ryan a bit, making him wonder if Psyshock had refined his powers since the last time they met. At least the vile psycho was dead for this loop, allowing the courier to relax. Enrique Blackthorne, chose that moment to enter the room, carrying a bright, exquisite bouquet in his arms. Well, I believe congratulations are in order, the corporate mastermind said, putting the flowers next to the window. A bit heavy-handed for my taste, but I expected collateral damage from your part, Romano. What will happen to the children? Wyvern asked, sounding quite familiar with her manager. We will take care of them, Enrique said. They will be hosted in a secure facility far away from Rust Town, and many people voiced their intention to adopt some of them. Let it not be said that Dynamis is not family-friendly. Of course they would try to exploit the situation for a publicity stunt. Well, I'm sure everyone cared about them before I posted these photos on the Dynanet, Ryan mused. Speaking of photos, Romano, I am highly disappointed in you, Enrique scolded him. I remember telling you that your name was Time Lord now, yet you introduce yourself in your pictures as Quicksave and his cat. Now the damage is done, and it might be even too late to correct that mistake. Wait, that's what bothers you? Ryan asked, surprised. You're not mad about our little adventure? Why would I? Enrique asked, also genuinely surprised. You and Adam Cat saved an orphanage while dealing a savage blow to the city's criminal underbelly. You did good. Yeah, but I skipped the training, and you said you didn't like loose cannons. I don't, but I believe you are under a misconception. You are free to do as you wish, as long as you accept the consequences. If your actions, no matter how irresponsible, lead to a victory, then obviously it was done with Dynamis' full approval. If you fuck up, then you did it on your own. So, if I succeed, Ryan summarized, to make sure he had heard it straight. You take the credit, and if I fail, I take the blame? No, no, Enrique reassured him. If you succeed, we share the credit, and if you fail, you take the blame. A distinction without a difference. I admire your pragmatism, sir.
You are a genius, sir.
Enough with the fake servility, Romano. I get enough of that from the trainees. He then joined his hands in a calculating mastermind pose.
Now the bitter part.
Oh, I know that expression, Ryan mused, who had seen it over and over again. You are going to crush all our hopes and dreams with the dullest tone possible. You catch on quickly, Romano, Enrique replied dryly. Vulcan is to be released. Wyvern's eyes widened in fury, the first time Ryan had seen her lose her cool. After she tried to murder two of our own?
No. No way.
Wyvern, I understand how you feel, but if she gets away with a slap on her back, I quit. As the silence stretched on, Ryan noticed the rose on Enrique's cashmere suit started growing thorns, shifting as if ready to jump from its holder and attack. Even the flowers near the bedroom's windows seemed to gain a life of their own, their petals swirling. Believe me, Blackthorn said, his voice calm but betraying an undercurrent of anger, I fully share your frustration. However, I do not have the luxury to act on it, and neither do you. The order comes straight from the CEO.
Hector himself?
But why? Wyvern asked, all but choking. She's the only one who knows how to make advanced armors. If she's taken out, their entire operation takes a blow. My father doesn't want to spark retaliation from Augustus.
Enrique sighed.
We are in a period of détente with him. Don Hector believes another direct conflict would cost us more than sweeping this incident under the rug, especially after Adam Cat's poaching. If Vulcan remains in custody, Mars and Venus may convince their master to get down from his mountain. What happened today wasn't détente at all, Wyvern pointed out. Can't you talk your father out of this? I tried, Enrique replied with a sigh. I even called Alphonse for support, but it didn't change anything. It would have been a different story if someone on our team had died, but since both your teammates and Vulcan survived, she will be allowed to leave with a warning. If she or another capo tries anything like that again though, then it's war. Wyvern closed her eyes, breathing heavily. This can't continue, Enrique. Be patient, Wyvern, Enrique said. The time to clean this city will come. You've been saying that for 2 years, she pointed out. And I may say that for 2 more years if it prevents another Malta.
Huh? What happened in Malta? Ryan asked.
He heard rumors, but nothing detailed. It sank, Enrique replied dryly, checking his watch under his sleeve.
I must go.
Wyvern, quick save. At least he stopped using that name. Once Blackthorn left and the flowers turned inanimate again, Ryan glanced at Wyvern. The superheroine's face had turned distraught, her eyes glancing through the window with disappointment. Wyvern, tell me, Ryan coughed, the armors used by the private security elite, it's Vulcan's work, right?
She nodded slowly.
I heard you two were close.
We were.
The superheroine frowned a bit. Why are you insisting on the close part? Her obsession with you seems, I dunno, a bit too passionate. Wyvern looked at him with an incredulous face, then a thought seemed to cross her mind.
No, she said after some hesitation. It's...
She let out a sigh, clearly not eager to speak about it. Ryan waited, knowing she would speak if not pressured. She was my partner once, Wyvern finally admitted, even before I joined Il Miglior. Your sidekick. My partner, Wyvern insisted.
She was the brains, I was the brawn.
However, since I was the only one in the field, the media and citizens attributed most of our success to me. Eventually, she tried to rebrand herself as a solo hero, but since she was a genius, and the backbone of its high-tech military, Dynamis didn't want her out of a lab. She was too precious to risk in a direct confrontation, but she didn't see it that way. She felt sidelined and disrespected. So she stewed in her resentment, and eventually, Augustus approached her with a promise of a cushy capo rank and total autonomy if she switched sides. And you never noticed? I guess you weren't that close then. She never told me anything before she exploded, how was I supposed to know? Wyvern replied with annoyance.
I trusted her.
The bedroom's door opened, a feline walking inside without making a sound. Wyvern, Adam Cat nodded politely, double-checking the door's lock before turning towards Ryan. Quick save, you said the meta had a supply of elixirs? What made you think that? I can tell when psychos suffer from withdrawal. He had a long experience managing someone like Bloodstream. None of them were, and they haven't behaved like normal psychos for weeks. It seemed to be the likeliest explanation. Mosquito died while in medical care. Ryan immediately caught on, though Wyvern didn't connect the dots. What are you suggesting? She asked, confused.
The reptilians, Ryan explained.
The reptilians struck again. They're everywhere. Wyvern stared at him without a word.
She knew he was onto her.
Can you be serious a minute? Adam Cat replied, completely missing the joke. Don't you find it strange? He could have died of natural causes, Wyvern said, not really bothered by the fact she might be responsible.
I hit him hard.
Maybe, but if Quicksave's theory is correct, then the meta must have gotten their extra elixirs from someone. Wyvern crossed her arms, thoughtful. It is true that private security members tried to help Ghoul escape confinement, she conceded. But what you are suggesting is a very serious accusation. Someone inside Dynamis is clearly helping the meta, Adam Cat declared boldly. Supplying them with knockoff elixirs, information, and support while covering their tracks. That's the only explanation.
I don't know Felix, Wyvern said. I don't.
Wait, your name is Felix? Ryan cut off Wyvern, glancing at his sidekick. And your superhero name is Adam Cat?
I don't see the problem, he lied.
Ryan didn't say anything, even if the jokes wrote themselves. That would be too easy. Wyvern waited a second for him to calm down, before finishing her sentence. I don't doubt that some divisions of Dynamis are corrupt and that the meta could pay off private security grunts to provide information and support. The Augusti do it too, and that has been a problem for years. However, elixirs are something else. For anyone to secure a steady supply, they would need cooperation from top executives or key people, all heavily scrutinized. Even the Augusti need to buy the knockoffs through corrupt intermediaries to avoid detection. They could be making their own, Ryan suggested the obvious. Even the Augusti haven't managed that feat yet, Wyvern dismissed it. I'm more worried about that bunker Mosquito told us about, honestly. I always wondered why the Metagang never attacked Dynamis establishments, or tried to expand. Even their attacks on the Augusti were only an attempt to keep them out of Rust Town. It said everything about psychos that attacking an orphanage was considered restrained on their part. So all they want is that bunker?
Adam Cat asked.
They're trying not to draw attention to themselves while they unearth it? And if Adam wants it, it can't be good. Well, my good friends, the path ahead is clear, Ryan said. We go to the junkyard and see for ourselves. Much to his consternation, neither seemed keen on the idea. If they want this bunker so much, they probably have all their heavy hitters stationed in the junkyard, Wyvern pointed out. Frank the Mad is physically stronger than me, Acid Rain possesses a devastating capacity for destruction, and Adam himself is as cunning as he is powerful. We also received reports that they recruited lone wolf psychos like the land, and with Psyshock's demise, they will expect an attack. We will need numbers, recon, and an attack plan.
But can it be done? Adam Cat asked.
Or will we let them go to avoid escalating tensions? Clearly, Enrique had given him the talk on his way out. Unlike the Augusti though, Wyvern seemed optimistic on that front.
The meta aren't Augustus, she said.
Especially after that stunt, the public will want us to take action against TH-. She stopped talking, touching her earplug.
What's up? Ryan asked. Another late-night commercial?
It's the harbor, Wyvern said grimly. There has been a massacre. As dawn started to appear beyond the horizon and he fought off drowsiness, Ryan realized that he should have anticipated something like that. He had seen the assassin at the harbor, and the bathysphere shipment was scheduled long before the courier himself entered the picture. Of course Zonbato would maintain it even without Ryan's presence, and with Ghoul's arrest, the meta sent Saren to attack the meeting alone. It must have seemed like a golden opportunity to score a few easy kills. Quicksave and his cat, Felix the Adam Cat, muttered on the front passenger seat, as Ryan parked near the security core Dynamis established around the harbor. I should sue you. Ryan looked straight into his eyes. Your name is Felix Cat. It means lucky. Adam Cat protested. You're never going to let me live it down, are you?
No, never.
Then I will call you Quickie from now on.
I'll be blunt, Ryan sighed.
That makes it sound like you have a thing for me.
Oh my no.
Adam Cat replied, his tone dripping with sarcasm. I don't wish that on anyone, you're horrible. You wouldn't be able to handle half of me anyway. Believe me, Kitty, if I took you, the experience would be so intense that you would never be able to enjoy a girl ever again. I invented positions so powerful, the authorities had to make them illegal. When they arrived at the spot where Ryan had first met with Luigi and his goons, the duo only found corpses and private security members taking pictures of the crime scene. Saren had left a few holes in the dock, indicating that she hadn't gone quietly. Her empty hazmat suit had already been recovered, drained of its contents. Ryan wondered if she had somehow survived. The Augusti's remains left nothing to interpretation. Luigi and his unpowered goons had been torn to shreds by sharp blades, their corpses tossed into the ocean. Their blood colored the water red. Zonbato's armor had short-circuited like during the last loop, shocking him to death. Considering the hole in his chest, Saren had exploited the opportunity to land a direct shot at his vitals, killing him instantly. The samurai laid on his back, a fallen warrior. The Punisher struck again, Ryan muttered to himself, feeling slight guilt upon seeing Jamie's remains. He liked the guy, and the fact he couldn't save him during this loop made him feel a bit down. The courier knew he could bring the swordsman back, and he had seen people die so often he had grown numb to it, but still. After a shocked silence, Adam Cat seemed devastated, immediately rushing to Zonbato's side.
Fuck, it's Jamie. Huh? You knew him?
Yeah, we were pals before I left the family. Adam Cat examined the corpse with hollow eyes.
Shit.
Ryan said nothing, unsure how to react. His last attempt to comfort someone had gone horribly wrong.
I knew this day would come, I knew it. But he has a girl at home, man. Shit?
Adam Cat shook his head, clearly distraught and confused. Quickie, do you mind giving me a ride? You want to see his girlfriend?
Ryan guessed.
Yeah, I believe an old friend should deliver the news. Even if I burned that bridge, Jamie deserved that much. Ryan turned to his sidekick, remembering how he himself died at Jamie's house in the previous loop.
That's not a good idea.
Adam Cat looked ready to protest, but to his credit, he considered the courier's words rationally. You think they will target her next?
Yes.
This disaster confirmed that the assassin wasn't after Ryan specifically, but the genomes associated with the Augusti. The courier felt a little wounded at not having a secret nemesis, though it didn't explain how that mysterious vigilante figured out his cooldown limit. Outside of Dynamis, who could be mad enough to take on an organization as powerful as Augustus and know Ryan enough to figure out his time.
Then it clicked. Oh, Ryan spoke out loud. No way. What?
I think I know who did this, Ryan replied, opening his cell phone, which is both awesome and terrifying. On one hand, that meant another route to unlock, but on the other hand, yeesh, the boss fights would be terrible. Adam Cat cracked his knuckles. So what do we do? Ryan showed him his cell phone and the location where he had tracked the hacker's IP address. We catch the lion in its own den, of course.
It can't be them.
Ryan searched inside his car's trunk, finally putting his hands on his secret weapons, his coil gun and a bag of flour. What do you know of Leo Hargrave's carnival, my feline friend? That they're wandering heroes fighting marauders, warlords, dangerous genomes, and psychos, Adam Cat replied, his back against the car. They help communities pro bono, then move on. They're modern knight-errant, not assassins.
That's true, Ryan conceded.
Which was partly why he respected them as a group, even after the problems they caused him. But they're also pragmatic knights. When they fight, they don't pull their punches. They hit hard and fast, and unlike most genomes, they actually use small unit tactics. You speak as if you fought them.
I did.
And they gave him his fair share of resets, especially in his early loops. I was present when they killed Bloodstream 4 years ago and got caught in the crossfire. Now usually I love being in the middle of interesting things, but that day cost me something dear to me. Something, or someone.
Shop Cat.
It had been the day Ryan had drunk his elixir, which he did to survive that disaster in the first place. He couldn't fully control his save point back then, and he ended up trapped in a suboptimal route. One which separated him from Len. As the thought crossed his mind, Ryan glanced at the Mediterranean Sea, the rising dawn refracting on its waters. As it turned out, the assassin had established their base in a ship graveyard between Rust Town and the Old Harbor. The supertanker he had seen on the shores was only the first of an army. Metal husks of tankers, boats, and even aircrafts were lined up on a sandy shore, rusted by saltwater. Barnacles had made their home on the belly of ships and Airbus planes alike, with small alleys between each steel corpse. The IP signal came from an isolated garage nearby, a metal hangar partly built inside a cruise ship. Probably some kind of chop shop, scavenging the husks and selling back parts. Rainy, toxic clouds appeared north, though strangely, they moved against the wind and towards the harbor. Was it the doing of Dynamis, blowing the pollution away from Rust Town? Adam Cat crossed his arms, remembering something. Dad once told me that he fought their original lineup years ago, before he and Mom adopted Narcinia. Augustus was still establishing his power base back then. He killed half of the carnival's members and drove off the rest. Well, they had returned to finish the job. Better late than never. But I never heard anything about a glass manipulator. They have a lot of turnover, so this may be a new recruit, Ryan replied. Considering the invisibility and the fact they often killed through bombs or mundane means, such a genome could credibly fly under the radar. Especially if all witnesses end up dead. I can't move the car closer or carry anything with screens. I'm pretty sure they can detect and control glass over a vast radius.
How vast?
I don't know, Ryan replied, tossing his cell phone to the back seat, alongside all electronic devices. He only kept the nuclear bomb and the rabbit plushie. They may even know we are here already. Alright, then I will stay near the car, and if you don't send a sign within half an hour, I will call Wyvern for help, Adam Cat decided. What about your mask's goggles? Silly, they aren't made of glass.
Ryan replied. They're alien stuff.
Right, and that is that flour? Adam Cat frowned at Ryan's toys. Do you want to bake them a cake? They will never see it coming. Adam Cat smiled thinly. I know you won't listen, but please don't do anything stupid. Don't worry, I have more lives than your 9 ones, Ryan replied, packing his stuff and moving to the garage. Though, he would be lying if the situation didn't make him uneasy. The carnival's members were powerful genomes, and that assassin had killed him twice already. A wrong move might result in another reset, and their previous history made him tense up. As he reached the locked door, Ryan realized now would be the perfect time for a stealth mission. But he was pretty sure it was useless, and he never had the patience for them. Instead, he shot the lock with his coil gun, the electromagnetic projectile going straight through the steel. No country for old men, he shouted, entering the garage weapon raised. Unlike the movie, no one welcomed him with a shotgun past the door. In fact, the garage didn't hold any car, engine, or ship parts. Instead, it housed several computer servers. Dozens of them in total, clearly jury-rigged and linked to an autonomous electric generator. 2 air conditioners worked to cool them down while wires went through a hole in the ground, probably linking the system to Dynami's underground cables. A massive desk with a single chair stood in the middle, surrounded by screens. Also, Ryan noticed that he could see the ship graveyard through the windows easily enough, yet he had seen none of these servers from the outside. There was definitely an optical trick at work. Yeah, this wasn't a recent development. They must have spent weeks, if not months, setting up this safe house. Ryan approached the computer, currently displaying a boring screensaver on 5 different screens. It seemed he had busted the operation, while the mysterious assassin had gotten away. Or so they wanted him to think. Without warning, the courier froze time, opened the bag of flour, and rotated on himself. He sprayed the white powder in every direction, on the screens, windows, servers, and the corners. A humanoid torso appeared right behind him, standing in a corner with a partially visible sword raised.
Here you are.
The flour had hit some kind of invisible armor, so Ryan took the time to draw "Kill me, I'm a perv" on the chest. As time resumed, the figure froze as they found itself with a coil gun pointed to their head.
Caught you, Invisiboy.
Ryan couldn't help but gloat. Or is it Invisigirl?
I can never tell.
I will move faster than your finger on the trigger, Invisiboy replied, his voice muffled by his strange suit.
Are we playing Lucky Luke?
I can draw faster than my shadow, faster than time even. I don't think you actually stop time, Cesare Sabino, you only give the illusion of it, he replied, absolutely calm. Or is it Ryan Romano now? Ryan, the courier replied. He tried to identify the voice, but the suit muffled it too much. I don't think we met though, Mr. Carnival. The figure let out a sigh of frustration at being identified.
We did.
Though you didn't know I existed back then. I wondered if you were a new recruit or an invisible ace, Ryan mused. That explained a lot of his organization's success if the Carnival had a hidden operative of his caliber. What should I call you then? Realizing that a fight wouldn't break out unless he started it, the mysterious genome became fully visible. His entire body was coated in bright blue glass, from head to toe. The substance prevented Ryan from seeing anything. The armor was completely shapeless, the face round like a featureless doll. It made the vigilante look rather eerie. Ryan realized that this man mimicked invisibility by somehow bending the light around his armor, perhaps using the same process used in lenticular technologies. The courier could barely fathom the sheer control needed to pull that off, although that trick didn't protect him from smoke or rain. This was some powerful orange genome. You may call me the Shroud. The glass man tilted his head to the side. And if you haven't shot me in your frozen time, I assume you want a towel. Ryan threw the flour bag at his face. Invisiboy stood in silence, the paper bag falling off his helmet and onto the ground. His face now looked like that of a clown with all the powder. That was highly immature, the assassin said, dusting the flour off his helmet. Well, he killed Ryan twice. The courier had earned the right to be petty. Don't blame me if I keep my weapon drawn, the time manipulator said since his current host's sword remained ever threatening. You've been assassinating a lot of people lately, and killing you is still on the table. You and Il Miglior have nothing to fear from us, the man replied, crossing his arms. Our current targets are the Augusti and the Meta. Oh, then I assume you must have hacked into Dynami's by accident. Only to root out the infiltrators in your company's midst, the genome scoffed. To be honest, I'm surprised you even managed to track me down. I was very careful not to leave a trace. Ryan wasn't in the mood to enlighten him, especially after he killed the courier twice. Why did you kill Zonbato and his fellows at the docks? Is that anger in your voice? Your concern surprises me. The glass genome walked towards the screens, ignoring the gun pointed at his head, and sat on the chair. As far as I know, the two of you haven't even interacted. Maybe I did. And maybe so far, I didn't see anything that justified killing him. Heck, he's pretty low in the hierarchy as far as I know. The man joined his hands, the posture reminding Ryan of Enrique Manada. Do you know what they were shipping at the docks? Candies. Chemicals destined to the Augustes Fortress Lab on Ischia Island, which produces their bliss, Shroud corrected him. The drug is then shipped through boats and submarines to local distributors all over Italy, Spain, France, Turkey, Libya, a drug which is incredibly addictive and that Augustus uses to subvert communities, even as they struggle to recover from the wars.
Your point.
No matter their friendly neighborhood gangster publicity, the Augusti do far more harm than good, the genome declared. And even if he killed no one personally, by protecting the shipment, Zonbato indirectly supported an organization causing almost 20,000 deaths each year, with 3,000 in New Rome alone. So if I understand right, Ryan coughed, you will reduce violence by committing more violence? On some level, the vigilante seemed to recognize the hypocrisy involved, because he hung back in his chair, thoughtful. Ryan couldn't see his body language with the armor on, but he seemed conflicted. I don't like it, he admitted. I really don't. I would prefer to talk it out, or put criminals in jail. No matter what people say, you never get used to killing. Even my teammates within the carnival frown on what I'm doing. Ryan wondered if the whole carnival had infiltrated the city, or if this Shroud was just the vanguard, preparing the ground for his teammates. The genome suspected he wasn't the only operative in New Rome, he couldn't have done so much damage alone.
I smell a butt.
But the situation has degraded to a point that things will only get worse if we do nothing. The Augustes Capos can attempt to murder someone in broad daylight and walk out with a pat on the back. There is no government to keep them in jail, and Dynamis is too afraid of Augustus to truly take action. He had a point, but there was a glaring flaw in his argument. Well, good luck trying to kill the invincible man then. It's not like everyone has tried for years without any progress. Augustus may call himself a god, but he is still only a man, and an aging one at that. He cannot peddle his drug in the street or exact tribute alone. He needs infrastructures, soldiers and money to exert his influence. Take away his subjects, and a king is simply a man wearing a crown. We may not be able to defeat Augustus, but we can destroy the Augusti. Why now though? Ryan asked, his gut telling him something was missing. Things have been somewhat peaceful and Augustus sits on his ass. Why act now? The glass man said nothing for a few seconds, clearly considering whether or not to divulge any information. Eventually he did. You must have seen it already, Shroud pointed out. There is a war brewing between this city's factions. A disaster that may spark a new round of genome wars and further devastation, if it is not prevented. Ah, so you're pursuing your perfect run too?
A perfect run?
Much to Ryan's delight, Shroud seemed to understand the reference. You could say that, but there is no perfect ending, quick save. Only the best for a certain group of people. How could it be that the only person who understood video game slang was the guy who had him killed? There was no justice in this world. And if there is a non-murderous alternative to bring down the Augusti? Do you have one? Shroud asked, sounding a little hopeful. Because I'm drawing a blank here.
Not this time, Ryan replied.
But I will find it, I promise. Shroud observed him in silence for a few seconds. To his credit, he seemed open to the idea. Well, in the unlikely case you do find a way to cripple the Augusti's operations without killing anyone, then yes, I will take it.
Good.
At least he wasn't some Punisher immune to diplomacy attempts. Ryan could already see the perfect path to Len, and how to defuse the situation. Otherwise, I will ask you not to reveal the existence of this place or my presence in New Rome, the vigilante explained. We have nothing against you or Il Miglior. In fact, I would be happy to cooperate towards making New Rome a better place, once your team is purged of its saboteurs. Though, if you switch sides to the Augusti or the Meta, expect us to come to blows. You are simply too powerful a genome not to be taken out early. Ryan remained silent for a moment, as everything became clear. I don't know whether I should feel flattered or furious. You considered joining them? The genome sounded only curious, but something in his tone betrayed an undercurrent of tension.
Nah. Ryan lied.
Well, he would never join the Meta, but still. But I wonder why you are okay with hitting the Augusti and not Dynamis. In spite of their faults, Dynamis does try to rebuild a somewhat functional society, Shroud grudgingly admitted. The company has systemic corruption issues, as Rusttown can attest, but it is a stabilizing force in Europe and it can be reformed once Hector Monada retires. I can't say the same for the Augusti, and let's not talk about the Meta. The vigilante observed Ryan closely. Thank you, by the way. For what, your whiteness? The genome seemed vaguely amused by the jab, but remained focused on the matter at hand. For saving that orphanage. I was only informed of the attack after it was already over, and I wouldn't have made it in time. I didn't expect you to turn your powers to a positive end, but I'm glad you did. Frankly, I worried you might follow in Bloodstream's footsteps, or hunt us down in revenge. He was sick and his death was only mercy, Ryan replied. It's separating me from Len that I can never forget. The glass man said absolutely nothing, a tense silence stretching between them. Ryan pressed the gun against that man's helmet. You know where she is?
I do.
To his credit, the genome sounded incredibly calm and confident for someone with a weapon pointed at them. I mapped every faction in this city before starting the operation. Although in her case, the problem isn't knowing her location, but reaching it. Where is she? The genome didn't answer directly, pondering his words. She never contacted you in all these years.
She couldn't, Ryan replied.
She didn't know I survived, because of you guys. You were never subtle in your stunts, nor shy about spreading your true name. I don't believe for a second that she never heard of you in 4 years. The courier's finger twitched, nearly pulling the trigger. What are you implying?
The obvious.
That she never contacted you because she didn't want to. And I think deep down, you understand that this is the only logical explanation. Ryan glared behind his mask. You know nothing. He considered what to do with this information. The carnival was clearly operating in New Rome as a fourth faction. They were the hidden route. However, his focus was finding Len, and he already saw a path towards her. The assassin was the biggest hurdle towards reaching her, and now he knew the perfect way to defuse the situation. He could see it already. The perfect run towards Len.
You were followed.
Ryan blinked at Shroud, drawn out of his reverie.
Plate IL? You were followed.
Shroud glanced at the window, a rain downpour hitting it from outside. Sick, yellow-green water corroding the glass on touch, and which attacked even the metal walls.
No. Not water. Acid.
Impossible, he had been careful when driving or using his phone.
Unless?
The DNA tracker, Ryan realized. He knew he should have read the fine print. An explosion echoed outside, telling Ryan that Adam Cat was currently fighting for his life. Without a word, Shroud turned invisible, all the flour on his armor falling to the side of his desk. He must have altered the glass layers to shrug it off. Ryan raised his weapon and prepared to rush through the door when he heard a loud noise from above him. Something was on the roof, crawling towards his location. Without warning, a wire tentacle broke through the garage's ceiling and aimed for Ryan's head. Ryan dived towards the servers, dodging flailing wires while the glass windows shattered around him. Outside, someone had opened fire on the garage, bullets piercing through the walls and damaging the computers inside. If it's the paparazzi, the courier complained, raising his coil gun at the ceiling, here's my autograph. He opened fire, projectiles going through the roof while glass shards formed flying walls to cover the holes in the ceiling. However, the acid rain quickly corroded them, the liquid falling on a server and starting an electrical fire. A monstrous mass of wires stood on the roof, its malevolent eyes glaring at the courier through one of the remaining openings.
Ryan blinked.
Aren't you brain dead, psy? I told you, Psyshock replied, an undercurrent of anger in his robotic voice as he raised his wire tentacles. From above, he looked like an alien metal squid.
I heal.
Oh good, that means I get to kill you twice. Ryan always saw the bright side of everything. The courier wondered who helped the psycho with his plastic surgery though. The skull's shape had changed slightly, turning slimmer. Either the telepath had improper regeneration, or he had a different power set than the courier thought. Also, his body had been recovered by dynamis for study. How did he escape quickly enough to launch this ambush? Something didn't add up at all. Psyshock moved his head out of sight before Ryan froze time, making it difficult for the courier to aim at the mutant's only vital area. It didn't help that the psycho's backup kept firing bullets from outside, providing suppressing fire. The invisible jackass created glass walls the best he could to keep the rain and the psycho out, but the silica didn't last long. Deciding he would rather risk the acid rain than Psyshock brainjacking him, the courier shot a few projectiles at the ceiling, dodged the frozen bullets, then rushed outside. Toxic clouds had overtaken the skies as far as he could see, unleashing an acid downpour on the ship graveyard and corroding the metal husks. A large part of the area had gone up in smoke, probably Adam Cat's doing. Ryan hoped that the kitty could hold his own against whatever allies Psyshock had brought with him. 2 mechanical hounds were the source of the gunfire, one standing atop an Airbus husk, the other on the ground. They had the shape of dogs, except with a glass visor for eyes, a machine gun mounted on their back, and ammo compartments on the belly. Dynamis probably used these drones to support the private security, and Ryan wondered if the meta had somehow hacked into them. When time resumed, the courier sensed the acid rain drip on his clothes, eating at his hat and mask. Ryan's clothes provided him little protection from the acid and had already started to dissolve. Since he didn't know of any natural acid with these properties, the courier guessed it was a unique chemical composition, probably from an orange genome. A few minutes without cover, and he would look like a hunk of cheese. Psyshock, standing atop the garage, attempted to pursue him, only to be forced back to dodge a glass spear aimed at his brain. A flying figure emerged from the workshop, attacking the Psycho with floating shards. The shroud occupied Psyshock, although the acid rain prevented him from using his invisibility. The poison corroded the vigilante's glass armor, making him visible to everyone. Yet, he could still control the glass and silica from his machines, summoning an entire storm of sharp projectiles to keep the Psycho busy. Psyshock seemed immune to the acid rain, and moved at high speeds to dodge glass spears and blades. Meanwhile, the drone's machine guns opened fire on Ryan, who retaliated by targeting the one on the ship's husk and pressing his coil gun's trigger. The projectile, faster and more powerful than normal bullets, went through the robohound's face and came out of its ass, blowing a hole in its circuitry. The other leaped around, firing at will. Ryan whistled, his car rushing out of the smoke, and towards his location. The acid rain had consumed its windows and damaged the paint, much to the courier's horror. Still, the machine hound couldn't dodge both Ryan's shots and the vehicle. The Plymouth hit it like a deer on the road, smashing the drone into pieces. "Cat!" Ryan shouted, rushing towards his car to take cover from the rain. "Cat!" A chill went down his spine, as one of the raindrops suddenly transformed into a grenade right above his car. Ryan barely had the time to backtrack before his wonderful Plymouth exploded in a burst of flames and iron parts. "My car!" the courier shouted in horror.
Not again. Caught you, thief.
A woman appeared in front of the courier, unaffected by the toxic rain. Her skin was bleached white, her golden hair cut short, and her eyes a bloodshot shade of crimson. She wore a sleeveless white shirt and tight shorts. Ryan might have called her attractive, if not for the crazy violent glint in her eyes. Oh, and she also carried a bloody butcher knife in her right hand. Let's not forget that part. "Acid rain, I suppose?" Ryan asked before activating his time stop. As he did so, the same feeling of tension ran through his spine. When he entered the frozen time, everything was tainted by a violet hue, but the woman had vanished. Did she manage to teleport away? Pain raced through his body, as the acid waters managed to eat away his clothes and reach the skin beneath. While furious about his car's destruction, the courier decided to retreat into the shadow of a ship husk, to get protection from the downpour. The second time resumed, once again, a wave of tension went down his spine as Ryan let out a cough of pain, as a butcher's knife found its way to his hand, cutting his fingers and causing him to drop his coil gun on the ground. Blood flowing through his right hand, although having experienced worse, he could still focus. "You can see it too," Acid Rain chuckled, blocking his path towards the husk.
The purple world.
"Oh. That place between two moments and two angles, paradise," she cackled, holding her head with both hands as if overtaken by rapturous desire. "It's so wonderful. My brain shines with its beauty." "Okay lady, I'm done here," Ryan said, looking inside his trench coat for the atom bomb. He barely had the time to bring it out of storage when the nimble killer teleported right in front of the courier, kicking the bomb away with a swift attack. She immediately vanished before the courier could return the favor. Before she reappeared and fled, Ryan sensed, he could not quite describe it, a gut feeling. The same feeling as when his own power activated. Not only could she summon acid rains, that Psycho could also switch places with raindrops, giving her an impressive teleportation range. A violet genome coupled with an orange. One who drew her power from the same source as Ryan's. Their powers interfered with one another, enough that each could sense the other's activation. The problem was, while the courier only needed a thought to activate his time stop, it took a fraction of a second to take effect. If she could sense its activation, Acid Rain had a very short window to react before the temporal anomaly manifested. And not only were her reflexes superhuman, but her power also took action faster than his own. Ryan guessed it made sense. His time stop affected the entire observable universe, while her teleportation only switched two objects in a short radius. Ryan had found a counter. "Geez, this city has a huge balance problem," he complained, before taking cover under a husk's shadow. He should have expected the meta to send a heavy hitter after him considering all the headaches he gave them in this restart, but damn, that girl hit hard. "Cat. Cat, where are you?" He couldn't hear anything with the downpour, nor see much. Even the battle between Shroud and Psyshock had turned into a distant background echo. "I got him first," Acid Rain laughed, reappearing atop an Airbus remains with a machine gun. She had a clear line of sight towards Ryan. Gutted him like a fish, chin to ass. She opened fire at Ryan, forcing the courier to duck. He attempted to target her with a well-placed thrown knife to the face, but she teleported away before the weapon could connect. Send me there, the madwoman snarled upon reappearing on the ground near Ryan's own location, daggers in both hands, his eyes lost in feverish madness. Send me there, you thief. You think you can keep it all for yourself, you miserable little punk? You think you can take this beautiful world from me? You selfish brat, you're violating my rights. Ryan stopped time for a second, the woman vanishing before the effect halted the clock. He immediately stopped the effect within 2 seconds, deciding to stick to short bursts as a defense. The woman reappeared, aiming for his chest, but this time he anticipated her. While she managed to put a dagger in his stomach, Ryan grazed her left shoulder with his own knife, barely missing the neck. Showing extreme nimbleness rivaling his own, she backflipped to safety, standing beneath the rain while the courier remained safely below the rusting husk. Ryan examined the wound, realizing he couldn't remove the blade without bleeding out. The situation wasn't good, he only had one hand left, and he took more damage than she did. To add insult to injury, the acid droplets seemed to avoid hitting her body, leaving her impeccably dressed even in the middle of a downpour. Ah, acid rain licked her own wound, her face one of blissful happiness. Ah, it's so warm, so warm. She enjoyed getting hurt. My compliments to the chef, Ryan deadpanned dryly. May I suggest some fava beans with your drink? Instead of quipping back, the madwoman let out a maniacal laugh. I'll hurt you for this, she snarled, her expression a mix of anger and pleasure. Oh yes, you will squeal. I'll knife you until you squeal, you little piggy. She immediately disappeared from Ryan's sight as he activated his time stop, perhaps returning to a safe house to grab weapons. The courier didn't mind dying now, since his perfect run towards Len would require an Augusti loop, but he would rather perish with dignity rather than die to this discount joker. Ryan searched inside his trench coat and brought out the plushie. It felt so tiny in his hand, and yet so dangerous. I want you to know this, the courier said as time resumed, trying to flip the hidden switch on the plushie's back. You forced me to do this. You forced me to do th. Another mental signal followed, and a grenade appeared right in front of him.
2 words came to mind. Meep meep.
Ryan's vision turned white, his hearing went deaf, and his back hit the ground. He felt the plushie slip through his fingers, far away from him. When he regained his sense of sight, and his ears started to make sense of words again, he laid helpless on his back, half his body burned, the rest bleeding out. Acid rain towered over him, like an angel of death. I'm going to knife you to death, she said with an angry face. And then I'm going to get inside your bowels. I'm sure you keep the map to the purple world there. Yes, you thief, I know that. Your intestines will look so tender and beautiful. This woman had serious issues. Ryan sighed and tried to come up with famous last words when acid rain glanced away from him and towards the shore.
Who are you? She hissed. Another thief? How many of you?
A stream of pressurized water targeted the psycho, who teleported away long before it could hit her. Ryan frowned in confusion, as he heard heavy footsteps on the ground, powerful enough to overshadow the noise from the downpour. Something big had emerged from the sea and moved on to the shore. Although Ryan's vision was starting to blur, he could see it approach. A towering figure of bronze alloys, carrying some kind of flamethrower device. The figure looked like a mix between a diver's suit and advanced armor, smaller than Vulcan's, yet as thick as a tank and painted crimson. Its helmet's single opening projected light like a lighthouse, illuminating Ryan as it glanced down at him. His eyes widened behind his mask, as he recognized the design. Len. The Iron Giant didn't answer, but although the courier couldn't see the person within due to the lighthouse visor, he immediately recognized her posture. The way she moved and carried her weapon, the slight concern when the Titan observed him.
It was her.
She was out of jail and free and alive and well. Ryan's heart beamed with happiness. Maybe she had always been there, watching him from afar. Mine. Acid rain snarled, teleporting so quickly she seemed to be in a dozen places at once. Mine, mine, mine. I am filled with disdain. Disdain and fury. Len, don't. Ryan pleaded as the bronze giant raised her weapon, realizing the danger. Get away. Too late. When acid rain ended her teleportation onslaught, she had replaced multiple raindrops with grenades. A rain of bombs fell upon the duo, with enough explosives to wipe out an entire city block. Ryan activated his time stop in a hurry, trying to drag Len away or remove the bombs. But his body collapsed under the strain of his injuries, his face hitting the bloody sand. Len. Time resumed, and this loop ended in a cataclysmic blast. It was May 8, 2024, the 7th time? The 8th? Ryan had lost count, though like always, he opened the day by ramming his car into Ghoul's back. You guys, Ryan sighed, climbing down from his car as Renesco's bar erupted into chaos. You guys are real assholes, you know that? I hope you do. And since they insisted on making his life difficult, the courier would return the favor tenfold this time around. I'm calling security. Renesco complained behind the bar counter, while the bar's customers watched on. Ghoul was trying to get back on his feet, dizzied by the blow. Calm and hopeful after seeing Len again, Ryan grabbed the Fisty brothers and put the gloves on. But I am an optimist, and since this should be my perfect run, I think we can let bygones be bygones, he said, as he playfully approached Ghoul. Start anew, play tennis, even become friends. Do you want to be my friend, Ghoul?
Who the hell are yo?
Ryan sucker punched him in the stomach, the psycho falling to his knees with a groan. I think we will do it the anime way. Ryan grabbed Ghoul's head with the Fisty brothers and brought it closer to his own. The psycho's eyes widened in confusion. I beat you up, you will develop Stockholm Syndrome, and then you will become my Robin. Quick save and the Ghoul wonder. We're going to have merchandise, comics, television shows, sitcoms, and pointless derivatives. Everything that makes life worth living. We'll be together forever. The people in the bars looked at Ryan as if he were insane. We'll have our faces on every fast food. McDonald's, KFC, Burger King. We'll get Happy Meals, Ghoul.
Free Happy Meals.
Ghoul just stared at him with straight-up terror in his eyes. It's a whole new franchise. What a bright day. As Ryan drove towards the ship graveyard and Shroud's warehouse, he felt utterly happy with himself. The courier had the intuition that everything would turn out well for him this time around. I feel like you're my lucky charm, my friend, Ryan told Ghoul. Like a rabbit's foot, or a four-leaf clover. I should have kept you ages ago. The psycho's bodiless skull glared at him, hung on the rear mirror by a rope. Surprisingly, it had cost Ryan less money to convince the private security to keep the psycho for himself than imprisoning it. He guessed it cost more to feed a prisoner than to just ignore a vigilante. Like all loops so far, Wyvern visited him, although she sounded a bit less enthusiastic this time, for some ghoulish reason. She had also insisted he deliver Ghoul for safekeeping, as a sign of trust, and for his own safety. Vulcan followed with her own recruitment pitch, putting him firmly on the Augusti path. So far so good. Ryan stopped in front of the warehouse, grabbed Ghoul with Fisty, and then stepped out of the car. I will kill you, Ghoul snarled. I will kill you, I swear. He never finished his sentence, as Ryan started juggling the skull while whistling. He looked through the warehouse's window, seeing neither the servers nor the friendly neighborhood assassin. If he didn't have absolute trust in his power, the courier might have mistook the events of the previous loop for a feverish dream. Instead of breaking in this time, Ryan knocked on the door, Ghoul's nauseous skull under his arm. Hey, can you let me in? I have a car window problem.
Ryan shouted.
Shroudy repair, Shroudy replace? He waited a full minute before the door finally opened, revealing a glass man and servers on the other side. How did you know? The carnival member asked, glancing around as if expecting a hidden camera. Oh, I'm alone, my carnival friend. Ryan said, before showing him the skull. Except Ghoul Wonder here, but it's a package deal. Like Dresden and Bob, or Laurel and Hardy.
Get in.
Ryan walked inside, the shroud closing the door behind them. The genome remained fully visible this time, perhaps believing the courier didn't know about that trick. He sat in his chair, the screens of his many computers showing a map of New Rome with multiple locations marked. Most seemed to be Augusti fronts, like the Bakuto and Renesco's place. A cup of chamomile tea waited near the keyboard. Quick save, how did you know? Shroud asked him again, skipping the pleasantries and being all business. You don't ask a magician to reveal his tricks, Ryan replied, glancing at the cup. Like this one, tea. He shook Ghoul's head in front of the teacup until the skull let out a puff of white mist. The liquid turned cold, ice cubes appearing on the surface. Iced tea. True genius, Shroud replied with heavy sarcasm, although he didn't touch the beverage. He also works with fridges, and it's eco-friendly. I will rape you, you maniac. Ghoul snarled. I will kill you, and then I will rape your corpse while it's still warm. You deserve the pain, asshole, the glass manipulator replied, completely unsympathetic to the psycho's plight. You killed at least 17 people, according to my files. Only 17? The psycho laughed before bragging. I killed hundreds. Hundreds. He sounded really proud of it too. You would think Ghoul would know better than brag about his body count while in his current position, but nope. Shroud observed the psycho with cold disdain, before turning to Ryan. What do you want me to do with him? Why, interrogate him of course. Ryan said, caressing the back of Ghoul's skull. Isn't that right, Skellington? You'll tell us everything about this big bunker your big bad boss wants so much.
A bunker?
Shroud asked, instantly interested.
Bleep you, quick save. Bleep you.
Shut up, slave, Ryan replied, before slapping Ghoul. Why you slapped me, the talking skull complained.
You slapped.
And Ryan slapped him again, the psycho glaring at him with fury and humiliation. Everything you can do to me, Adam can do worse. Oh really? Accepting the challenge, Shroud separated a glass shard from his armor, shaping it into a thin needle. The object floated right in front of the psycho's skull, lining itself with his left eye. If you don't tell me everything, that needle will work its way into your eye, and then the brain.
Slowly, painfully.
Then I will work on the other. I have survived decapitation, bitch, Ghoul replied, unimpressed. He stared at the weapon as it came closer and closer, without faltering. Ryan sighed, putting his hand on Shroud's shoulder. What? The glass manipulator asked, stopping his needle as it reached the cornea. You believe he doesn't deserve it? I know you want to play Jack Bauer, but that's not how you torture a psycho, Ryan replied, searching inside his trench coat while putting the undead skull on a corner of the desk. Ghoul's eyes changed from confident to mesmerized, as the courier revealed a green potion, put inside a perfume-like receptacle. Dynami's logo was plastered on it, alongside the concoction's name. The Hercules knockoff elixir, made in Dynami's, Ryan advertised the product, dangling it in front of Ghoul. The skull tried to take it with his teeth, but obviously, he couldn't do it without legs.
You like it?
I bought it this morning. It grants superhuman strength and stamina, and I heard it feels like drinking a liquid orgasm.
Give it to me.
Ghoul snarled, his junkie addiction taking over. Give it to me, damn it. It's contraindicated for quadriplegics, Ryan taunted him. I guess I will have to flush it down the toilet.
Why, you monster?
The psycho sounded genuinely horrified. You won't dare. Do you know how much they cost?
What do they cost?
The courier exploded into maniacal laughter, chilling Ghoul to the bone. It made him laugh even more, with Glassman looking at the scene in disturbed silence. Life isn't about money.
It's about having fun. You have to stop him. Ghoul snarled at Shroud. You, Glassman. You have to stop him. He's mad.
Mad enough to do it. I don't think I can restrain him unless you give me information, Shroud replied, removing his needle and switching to good cop mode. I barely have any control as it is. Ryan opened the bottle, letting Ghoul smell its sweet perfume, before tilting it sideways. Some of the product fell on the ground, the undead letting out a snarl of horror.
Stop, stop.
Ghoul quickly caved in. There's a place below the junkyard.
A place. A place.
Shroud asked, unimpressed, while Ryan kept slowly spilling the product.
That's not enough.
A bunker below the trash tower. Ghoul said, his desperate eyes on the elixir. It's full of robots and laser turrets, they shoot at genomes on sight. We came to New Rome for it. This time, Ryan stopped spilling the knockoff on the ground, having kept half of the bottle. Ghoul let out a breath of deep relief, which was odd since he had no lungs. What's in the bunker? Shroud asked, his tone dangerous. Adam won't tell us, Ghoul replied, sounding truthful. He only told a few. He doesn't want word to get out. So you throw yourself at a fortified place without knowing what's inside? Shroud deadpanned, although he sounded more and more interested as he listened. Forgive me if I find that sketchy. Adam knows best, Ghoul replied.
He always does.
And he's obsessed with it. He says it's, how does he say it? The future, yes.
The future.
The automated defenses sense genomes and we lost a few people to them, so Adam decided to send normies in.
Even dogs. Another question then, Ryan said.
How about the sweet supply of elixir you psychos are high on?
I don't know, alright?
Ghoul snarled, Shroud listening like a hawk stalking a dove. Psyshock handles it for Adam. They distribute knockoff elixirs regularly, so long as we play by the rules. If we disobey or we look into it, we're cut from the supply. It would be impossible to generate a supply of genuine elixirs, considering their rarity, Shroud mused, his arms crossed.
Do they come from Dynamis?
If they are knockoffs, I would assume so.
Are you deaf?
I already told you, I don't know. I don't give a bleep where that sweet nectar comes from, so long as it flows. Ryan turned towards the Glassman, very proud of himself.
See?
That's worrying, I will grant you that, Shroud admitted. I will look into it. Can I keep Ghoul for further interrogation? Sure, I have the rest of the body in cold storage in my trunk. Ryan chuckled at his own joke, doubly so when Ghoul sent him a death glare. Though I would like it if you kept me updated on your progress. I promised someone I would get the meta out of Rust Town, and I will follow through. Shroud tilted his head to the side but didn't ask for details. Ghoul, meanwhile, grew even more agitated.
Give it to me now. I told you everything. Ryan looked at the skull, and into his tiny, adorable eyes. No arms, no elixir. The undead let out a snarl of pain and anger, which warmed the courier's heart with twisted schadenfreude. Hopes are like breakfast eggs, he told Shroud, as he put the knockoff on the other side of the desk, too far for Ghoul to reach. You can't start the day without crushing them. Instead of responding, the glass man detached a part of his glass armor, reshaping it into a jar to imprison Ghoul's skull inside. Why are you giving me this information? What do you want in return? Ryan put his hands behind his back and leaned toward Shroud, until their heads were within inches of one another. Where is Len? The glass man didn't answer the question immediately. His brain seemed to have frozen in place, failing to compute Ryan's words. That makes no sense, Shroud finally spoke up, shaking his head. That question, that whole situation makes no sense.
What do you mean, Mr. Saint Gabain?
I believe it should be clear enough. It is clear, but you shouldn't. He seemed to reach a eureka moment. Is your power truly stopping time? Ryan said nothing. I always wondered why you called yourself Quicksave, Shroud said. You seem extraordinarily lucky, as if you always know how things would turn out. As if the world itself would bend to your whims. You're clearly insane, yet somehow, you always get away with all the messes you leave in your wake. You knew where I was without me leaving any hints, that the psycho's intel would interest me, and that I had the information you needed. It can't be a coincidence, therefore it isn't.
Oh.
Ryan looked at Shroud with curiosity.
Please do go on.
You're not actually stopping time, Shroud argued. Instead, I think you peek into various alternate realities, then select one that favors you and overwrites the current one. Advanced reality manipulation. The transition just looks like a time stop to outsiders. Ryan listened to his rambling with great patience. He had to admit, it was a plausible theory, especially as far as violet genomes went. Though Shroud made the error of believing Ryan had only one visible power, instead of one power having multiple applications. The courier decided to be careful in his next loops, to make sure the glass manipulator never guessed his ability's true nature. So, am I right? The vigilante asked. Who knows? The courier replied with a shrug. But if you're right, certainly you should listen to my wise words. Also, bet on the T-Rex tonight, and the orange is in the henhouse. The orange is in the henhouse? Shroud asked, confused. If you remember these words, then you're safe. This confused the genome greatly, much to Ryan's amusement. While he mentally pondered on the matter, the glass genome turned toward his keyboard and started typing. A map of the West and the Tyrrhenian Sea appeared on the screen, and Shroud put his finger on a spot, in a maritime area roughly equidistant from New Rome, Sardinia, and Sicily.
She's there.
The Vavilof Basin. Ryan mused, his heart skipping a beat. The deepest part of the Tyrrhenian Basin, the glass genome confirmed. The Underdiver, as she calls herself now, has an undersea base somewhere in the area, 3 kilometers deep below the surface. Ryan gasped, as he connected the dots. An undersea communist utopia. You think this is a new Kremlin? Shroud turned his head, quite surprised. She's Marxist-Leninist, Ryan replied, completely giddy. Finally, he had reached his goal.
How do I get in?
I don't know, the glassman replied, disappointing the courier. Even with diver equipment, the place is full of mutant fish and other hazards. I didn't look too much into it, since besides supplying and repairing their shipping submarines, she isn't involved in the Augusti organization. Wow, you actually told me everything.
Shroud froze. Yes, and
if Ryan had known it would be so easy, instead of having to attack a movie studio or follow a seminar, he would have done that ages ago. I hope you aren't planning anything harmful with that information, the courier said, changing the subject, because if you intend to do anything to her, then we'll have a problem. My only targets are the Augusti and Meta, Shroud replied. Although I suspect you already know that part. If I targeted every private contractor in the city, half of New Rome would be wiped out, and she finances an orphanage in Rust Town. She ships them food and money every week. I won't attack someone trying to turn their life around. Ryan froze, as a few things fell into place. The Metagang intends to attack that place soon. Shroud immediately tensed. Why? You heard dem bones, they need normies to get inside the bunker. Apparently, some places are too big for adults to crawl into. So you can peek into alternate timelines. Shroud took this as a confirmation of his theory, although he clenched his fists. You are a pseudo-precog, and you help me because this is the optimal scenario.
Don't get too cocky, Windshield.
I will take care of the orphanage, he said with firm dedication. As for reaching your friend, I cannot help much. The only person who remains in contact with her is Vulcan, since they have a technology trade going on. I can look into it if you want. I don't think that will be necessary, But thank you, finally, the moment of truth. You see, I have received an offer from both Wyvern and Vulcan to join their respective organizations. Continue. I want you to stop your explosive assassination spree of the Augusti. And why would I do that? Shroud asked, his tone turning from cautiously friendly to cold. Because if I infiltrate the Augusti on your behalf, I don't want to get blown up by accident. The vigilante remained silent for a few seconds as he processed Ryan's words, then he laughed. You know that they have a truth teller? Luigi's my problem, Ryan replied, the vigilante a bit surprised that he knew the name. What you want is to cripple the Augusti organization, correct? Not cripple, Shroud replied. Destroy it utterly. Which can be done without killing anyone, Ryan argued. Most of their revenue comes from Bliss. Not all of it, Shroud replied. They have a finger in every pie. Prostitution, gambling, weapon trafficking, booze. But Bliss is the cornerstone of their business and moneymaker, yes. It's half their revenues. And correct me if I'm wrong, all the Bliss come from their island superlab. Yes, Shroud confirmed. I don't know why, but they can only produce the drug there. Maybe they need a specific genome or environmental conditions. I haven't been able to get in, or even close. Security is too tight. Well then, that's it, Ryan said, putting his hands on his hips in a Superman pose. I'll destroy this lab for you, and cripple their business. Glassman remained skeptical though. Assuming you succeed, which may be plausible, you want me to do what? Ignore the criminal syndicate killing people every day in the meantime? You don't attack the Augusti, especially Zonbato, Chitter, or Sphere. He might have included Luigi in the group, but Ryan didn't like him and the truth teller could cause problems down the line. And obviously you won't go after me. Crippling their Bliss supply won't be enough to destroy the organization, Shroud replied. It will weaken them, certainly, but we want to destroy Augustus' empire permanently. Yes, but if an assassin targets them, then the Augusti will be on edge and increase security around the lab, Ryan pointed out. If they get no early warning, and focus entirely on the meta. The courier let the sentence hang, while Shroud joined his hands to ponder the offer. Frankly, he had everything to gain with this arrangement. The Augusti and Metagang would kill each other without him having to risk discovery, and he would have an agent inside Augustus Group supplying him with information. With his own access to Dynami servers, the vigilante could secretly infiltrate every organization in the city, fix the whole board. 3 weeks, said the vigilante. You have 3 weeks to destroy that lab. Afterward, the matter will be out of my hands and I can't promise anything. And in whose hands will it be then? Shroud remained silent as a tombstone. Perhaps he wanted to gauge the limits of Ryan's abilities, or he didn't trust him yet. Well, hopefully, Ryan would have met with Len then, and it wouldn't be his problem anymore. He didn't care if Augustus and the Carnival fought one another, so long as he completed his own perfect run. He might even make another loop, just to bypass saying anything compromising to the glass manipulator. Don't bother coming back here, I will contact you, Shroud said. I will keep you informed of the meta investigation, and you will return me the favor as far as the Augusti are concerned. If you tell anyone I exist, I will learn of it, and the deal is off. Deal. Ryan presented his hand, Shroud shaking it. Don't take it personally when I say I hope we don't meet again. We both know this ain't happening. The glass manipulator dismissed him without a word, returning to his screens and files. Ryan turned away, reached the door, and opened it. Quick save. Shroud called him from behind. Ryan stopped on the threshold. I wish you luck for everything. You're doing good in the world. Don't forget that. Ryan waved his hand at him without turning back, closing the door behind. He glanced at the sea beyond the ship graveyard, where Len waited for him. Finally, the perfect path was clear. 4 years ago, Len Sabino woke up on a mattress, the room cold and chill. Water leaked from the wood ceiling, rain hitting the window. Thunder echoed in the distance, the storm getting closer. In spite of the noise, Ryan was soundly asleep next to her, snoring almost as loud as the lightning. Hey Riri, you're sleeping, she whispered, but the boy didn't offer any response. Ryan was kind of cute when he slept, and completely in denial about the snoring. Len remembered the day she and her dad had found him, amidst the rubble of a village destroyed by marauders. He had hidden in the basement, while his whole community had perished, their livestock taken. If she hadn't scavenged his house looking for supplies, Len may never have met Ryan. They stuck together for years afterward, never far from the other. They survived the wars, Dad's rampages, marauders, and genomes. Always together, even sharing the same bed. They were siblings in all but name, though she wished they could become more, even if she was too shy to say it out loud. She never had a boyfriend, didn't understand how these things worked. If only he would make the first move. Len glanced around the room. It used to be some kind of hunting lodge near the Alps, a silent house of wood on a steep hillside. The locals must have abandoned it a few years ago, either chased away by marauders or moving towards the rebuilding cities for protection. Everybody spoke about New Rome, whenever she managed to talk to someone outside her family without Dad interfering. When Ryan wouldn't wake up, Len left the bed in her pajamas and searched the room. Her companion had left his pants on a chair, and while it wasn't nice, the girl looked into his pockets. The blue elixir seemed to shine, as lightning fell right outside the bedroom. It had been weeks since they left Venice, and so far Dad hadn't noticed the potions. He had left the kids alone 3 days ago, to salvage stuff nearby. She hoped he wouldn't kill anyone this time. Len knew her father would come back. Ryan wished he didn't. He feared Dad, hated him. Len understood. Dad was difficult. He was already drinking a bit too much after Mom left them for her other family, but he always did his best to raise Len and her brother. When Cesare died during the bombing, something broke inside Dad and never came back. The elixirs had just been the last straw that broke the camel's back, making him take out his pain on others. But in spite of everything, he was still her father. Len observed the potion with a mix of fear and hope. She knew how Dad might react once she drank it, but blue elixirs made people smarter. Geniuses. Mekran drank one, and he invented killer robots and orbital lasers. If it gave her a smart power, maybe she could create a cure for Dad. Make him normal again. Turn their group into a real family, instead of whatever they were right now. Len hesitated, briefly glanced at Ryan, then moved into another room of the lodge. The garage at the back. The place was complete chaos, a storage area where the previous inhabitants put everything they got their hands on. Books, car parts, tools, lamps, even an old fridge and washing machine long out of use. It had a workshop, however, perhaps used to skin hunted animals. Since electricity didn't work, Len had to light up a candle to see and provide some warmth. She sat behind the workbench and examined the elixir. The receptacle provided no notice, no information besides its helix symbol. It would be a leap into the unknown. A direct injection scared her, so she decided to ingest the substance directly. She had seen Dad do it before, so it should work. Breathing long and deep, Len removed the syringe and drank the potion whole. The substance tasted unlike anything she had ever felt. It mixed the texture of salt water with alien flavors, neither sweet nor salty, neither acid nor bitter. The liquid had no natural component at all. More strangely, the substance fused with her flesh. As she drank it, the elixir vanished before it could move into her stomach. It went straight into her bloodstream through the tongue and mouth, bypassing the normal digestion process. In the span of seconds, Len had swallowed it whole. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Len put the empty syringe on the workbench, wondering if something had gone wrong. Had age caused the elixir to lose its potency? And then her mind caught fire. A manic surge of divine inspiration possessed Len, ideas flowing into her head. Raw, pure information filled her brain like a torrent of water breaking through a dam, expanding her neurons, changing her whole understanding of the universe. She couldn't move, her consciousness freezing as it struggled to compute an enormous mass of new content. Her body went numb, a surge of blue energy phasing through her nerves, her bones, her organs. It was brief but intense, her entire self altered on a fundamental level. As the mutation continued, Len entered some kind of fugue state. The urge to create possessed her, her power demanded to be used, like a baby wishing to be born into the world. As the blue light left her body, Len's hands grabbed the remains of the fridge, the tools, the washing machine, and everything within reach. She didn't know how long she remained in that manic state. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. During that period, nothing else mattered. Not Dad, not Ryan, not the world. She only needed to create something, anything. When the surge lessened and Len regained control of herself, she had transformed the fridge and random stuff into some kind of bulky bathysphere. She had somehow painted it red, and even incorporated a hammer and broken sickle into the final design. Even in that fugue state, her personality had bled through. She understood her power's nature, almost intuitively. It boiled down to one word: water. Her power was all about water. How it worked. How to understand marine life, and how to adapt land animals to survive below the waves. How to alter the ocean on a worldwide scale, how to make technology that resisted deep sea pressure, how to create devices capable of causing tsunamis. She knew what creatures lived in the darkest abysses of the planet, and how she could communicate with them. Her power provided her with all the information she needed, allowing her own creativity to fill in the blanks. For Len, who had always loved the sea and Jules Verne stories, it was almost a dream come true. It made her wonder if the elixir granted powers based on the dringer's personality, providing an ability that they would like based on the selected color. But for all its wonders, her power wouldn't help Dad. It wouldn't help Dad.
She couldn't imagine any way to cure him, even with her expanded intellect. She didn't even understand how his unique biology worked, let alone how to deal with his insanity. She could make submarines, tsunami machines, water control devices, but nothing that could help her understand elixirs, let alone the madness they caused.
And he, Len.
Len turned towards the door, Ryan stepping inside the garage while still in his pajamas. He glanced at the mini-sub, then at the empty bottle. His mouth said nothing, but his eyes widened.
I had to, Len said, her voice breaking. I had to.
There was no condemnation in his gaze, only worry. Was it worth it? Len shook her head in defeat, crumbling on the bench. The creative surge had left her exhausted as if she had run for hours. She felt his hand on her shoulder. She raised her head at Ryan, who offered her a warm smile. Hey, he said, pointing at the bathysphere.
It's still beautiful.
Now you can send fish to Siberia if they misbehave. The lame joke came out of nowhere but made Len laugh. You're horrible, she replied, the tension evaporating. I should send you to a gulag. We both know that will only be a temporary solution. Seriously though, Len smirked, we could travel. I can make a Nautilus from scrap parts. They heard the lodge's door open from the outside, the lock removed.
Len?
Cesare? Bloodstream's voice echoed through the lodge alongside the lightning, Ryan's hand tensing on Len's shoulder. Where are you?
We have to go.
Hide, Ryan said, panic overtaking his voice.
You have to hide.
Where? Len replied sadly. There's nowhere to go. We have to leave, the homeless are revolting again. They killed my clone in. When Bloodstream entered the garage, leaving bloody footprints behind, Ryan had moved in front of Len. The psycho observed his daughter without a word, the blood making up his body shifting like a raging ocean.
Len.
Dad's behavior had suddenly changed from warm to tense. What am I sensing?
Dad.
What am I sensing in your blood? Ryan shielded Len, like a knight in shining armor protecting her from a furious dragon. But for all his bravery, he had no sword.
You have.
You have lied to me, Bloodstream rasped angrily, his fingers turning into claws. You lied to your own father.
Len froze.
She suddenly felt so small, the world so cold and unwelcoming. The power isn't for you. Dad snarled angrily.
It was for me.
It was always meant for me. Don't you understand, you stupid daughter? I took it for you. I took it to protect you. Protect you from this sick world. I know, the genius apologized, lowering her eyes.
I know. It was her fault.
If she had been strong, Dad wouldn't have had to take those potions and transform into a monster. Ever since your mother abandoned us, it was my responsibility.
Mine.
Dad calmed himself, but the menace in his voice only grew. You have to be punished. Dad, please.
Don't touch her.
Ryan tried to stop the psycho, but Bloodstream simply slapped him out of the way with a furious backhand, sending the boy to the floor. Her father moved towards Len, hands raised to strangle her. His daughter closed her eyes and didn't resist. She just waited for the inevitable.
But it never came.
She opened her eyes again, facing her father's featureless visage. His claws within an inch of his daughter's neck, Bloodstream trembled, as if suffering from Parkinson's disease. No, Dad suddenly held his head with both hands, fighting a headache.
No, not her, not Len. I can't.
I can control it.
I can.
Bloodstream walked away from the garage, his last embers of humanity struggling against the elixir addiction. Dad vanished inside the lodge, Len hearing him bang his head against a wall in a room nearby. Ryan had recovered from the slap, Len extending a hand to help get back on his feet. You're okay? She asked with concern. He had blood falling from his nose, not Bloodstream's but his own. Yeah, he said, although clearly shaken.
Yeah.
You were very brave, she tried to cheer him up, blushing a bit. It was very heroic. Instead of answering with words, he kissed her. Len gasped, as he pulled her towards him without warning, his lips against her. It was a kiss born of hunger, of a primal desire for comfort and human contact.
It felt good.
After all the fear and tension, it just felt good. They quickly broke the embrace as they heard Dad crawl back into the room, putting space between each other. Whether it was out of fear of discovery or embarrassment, Len couldn't tell.
I am well.
I see clearly, Bloodstream seemed calmer, but he didn't mention the incident. He didn't even acknowledge Ryan or his injury. I see it clearly now.
You are smart, Len.
You're smarter now. You can make anything. Why yes, no I mean, Len cleared her throat anxiously. I can't make anything, but I can build stuff. We will leave, Bloodstream declared suddenly.
People are after me. After us.
They destroy my clones and close in. You will make a sub, and we will leave. It was getting harder and harder to find good places to crash in anyway. Leave where? Ryan asked, very careful. How about America? Bloodstream replied, joining his hands. The land of opportunity, Hollywood. We will be stars there, stars. Like the Kardashians. That was insane, Len thought. They barely knew how things were in France, let alone across the Atlantic. I will see, Dad. It's all going to be fine. Both Len and Ryan tensed, as Dad put a hand on their heads, almost paternally. We'll always be together. Present day. Silence and darkness. The bottom of the ocean was the most peaceful place on Earth. You could always hear sounds of some kind on the surface. The singing of birds. The wind on the grass. The horns of cars. The moans of Rust Town's whores and addicts. Here, in the deepest abyss of the Mediterranean Sea, Len was alone with her thoughts. She liked it this way. Carrying a plasma torch adapted for the underwater environment and clad in her diving armor suit, the genius worked on repairing the base's outer shell. Some of the steel parts hadn't handled the stress of deep-sea pressure, weakening a part of the modular habitat. While she had designed the place to be highly modular, with each house independent from the others, any leak could cause a disaster down the line. If it was to house life one day, it had to be perfectly safe. Safe from the horrors and darkness outside. The antidepressants dulled Len's mind, made her numb after the initial manic rush, but her power allowed her to focus anyway. If anything, she only really felt happy while working. Using her power filled Len with euphoria, provided her with a sense of purpose and direction she lacked in her life. It must be night above the surface, the genius thought. I wonder. Unable to suppress her curiosity, Len briefly activated her radio, listening to a conversation above the surface while working. Existence is subjective. Even now, hearing Ryan's voice startled Len and almost made her drop her tool. Your question, about whether I exist if you can roll back time. Len didn't recognize that voice. A new one. We can never know we exist, so there is no objective truth to existence. You're still thinking it over? Yes. It's disturbing. You get used to the uncertainty. No, you didn't. She couldn't. Len eavesdropped through Ryan's chronoradio for a while, then muted it. She had watched him from afar the day after he reached New Rome, while he was close to the shores. The genius could have sworn he knew she was nearby, and it made her retreat beneath the waves. Ryan was looking for her. He had been for years. And she didn't know what to tell him.